Hello, and welcome back to the Boston Commune. This week's incredulous installment is a chonky boy. Oh my god. This week's incredulous installment is a chonky boy, featuring commentary from comrades Scott, Joe, Kit, Ellie, Trent, Will, Aisha, and myself. We discuss the past, present, and future of the left as the 2020 general election results are tallied before our very eyes. Please do us a favor and share this content. Do yourself a favor and enjoy your epoch.
Yeah, there's definitely not a great outcome on the horizon for this. Either way, we're getting a staunchly capitalist, president who has expressed immense hostility to socialism and the socialist movement. They're going to implement crackdowns and austerity. Really, there's no victor here. There's no one to go out in the streets for. We've been kind of knocked out of the ring.
It's the difference between being shot in the face or jibbed a few times on the stomach.
I don't know, man. I would rather get shot in the face at this point.
After, I think it was an eco-socialism meeting in last September, I was like, if it looks like Joe Biden is going to be the nominee, can someone take me out back and shoot me in the face out of mercy, just put me out of my misery like a dying racehorse.
At the start of the primary process, if you had to predict a worst case scenario for the socialist left, definitely ending up with Biden and Kamala Harris would have been it.
Buttigieg would probably have been worse.
In what way?
Just because Biden might die,
Yeah, age advantage.
The go-tos in the Democratic Party are if they don't like something, it's racist, it's anti-Semitic, or it's bigoted.
We get the woke shield. I get what you mean. Yeah.
See what happened to Corbyn.
Or how
exactly.
In the 2016 primary, Hillary weaponized identity politics by being well, if you support the socialist guy from Vermont, that means that you're both a racist and a sexist because you don't support my bloodthirsty neoliberal policies.
What's fascinating about it, though, is if you remember in 2008, Clinton was trying to deliberately paint herself as the working class candidate and basically argue that Obama couldn't win because he was black. People forget this, but the famous photograph of Barack Obama in the the Kwanzaa outfit with the kente cloth and the little hat, her campaign released that.
I remember this, yeah.
Or the 3 a.m. ads that were scorched earth, aggressively racist.
So Pizzagate, yes or no?
Yeah.
In terms of,
was something sketchy going on with Podesta, Clinton, all that stuff. Clearly the Epstein thing was real.
Yes.
But,
That was also probably just YouTube fucking up. The way that YouTube does recommendations, it has a habit of showing more and more extreme content. And if there's something that you need to see before seeing something that will make you keep clicking, it's really, really good at finding that. So it tends to pull together a whole bunch of information that kind of makes sense and reinforces a worldview. So no one putting out the information believed it. It's just that one guy who shot people.
I don't know anything about it, but it's true for sure.
nice.
Yeah, I fully support the.
We might,
there's this. We're not going to become a QAnon podcast, but we some shit was going on. Epstein didn't kill himself.
To be clear, someone shut up this pizza store. It went beyond this is a bizarre conspiracy.
Yeah, do I agree with the substance that there's probably an international cabal of elites who use the sex trades to their advantage to have something to blackmail each other with? Yes, I do believe that. Do I think it's being run out of a pizza place in DC? Not necessarily.
So I'm on a new computer. I got 4 cores, and they're looking like they're handling they're distributing the load very well. I'm not.
I don't know why I find that description adorable. I don't know. I just do.
I don't know if I'm going to keep this in the final cut because, we have, 2 listeners, and I doubt that either of them understand what the fuck I'm talking about.
Motherfucker, we have, 30 listeners. They just don't listen to every episode.
Yeah, that was weird. We had, a stretch for a month where we're doing really well, and then that last one just really really shit the bed.
Damn, what y'all talk about on that one?
We got into a fight that was contentious enough for...
We just got in a fight, basically.
Yeah.
I just think that's what kind of happens with these things. Like, it just takes time, and like you get like lulls, and then you get ebbs and flows, you know.
Which is what I keep saying, and everybody's like, "Why is it real? Well, there's less listeners this week," and I'm just like, "Motherfucking guys."
I was just acknowledging what the number said.
You're good at that, Joe.
And I like to keep the philosophy that as long as we're happy with what we make, whatever. But no, money's good too, because we do live in a capitalist system. So,
You know, I kind of forgot for a second that, like, one of us is making money off of this.
So that, like, I will, oh my God, I will fucking give them, I will delineate the funds, don't worry.
Redistribute
I honestly forgot.
I will redistribute the podcast wealth, God damn it.
As our tyrant capitalist overlord, he's using his seat at the throne to oppress the rest of the working class. I slave in front of this monitor. Actually, this is a brand
I'm with
new
you guys.
monitor.
How else am I going to get out of this cave? We got to get that guy.
Dave, I didn't know you were into this.
I don't know if you didn't know. This is Dave in the cave. This is Dave Rubin trapped in a cave. And he still doesn't know the difference between stalactites and stalagmites. I do, don't worry. I mean, that's the running joke, it doesn't matter. Jesse is a very good producer.
Say it one more time.
Jesse is a very good producer. Jesus Christ. I'll make it a sound drop, me saying that.
Oh, that's sweet.
Jesse usually records, like, everything. So, if you want anything to be cut out, let him know.
Yeah, I'll keep it in, though. I mean, you can tell me to cut it out, but...
Yeah, that's happened a few times, buddy. Thanks.
Only with you, though.
Where I literally said, hey, cut out that thing I said about the Intercept. And then, like, oh, that's in the episode. Okay.
But it was so perfect. Like, you couldn't have gone into that more quickly. You teased it
for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk shit. Okay, fine. It was the Intercept. And then I just went into it.
Like, I think it's kind of hilarious, like, the way that, like, it all went down, because he was, like, laying out why he did it. He was like, oh, I'm, like, the victim, like, I'm being oppressed.
Oh, this wasn't about Greenwald, though. But you can go, Joe. I am curious what you have to say about it.
And he's like, oh, I'm being oppressed and I'm being censored. And then, like, the Intercept's, like, the people who are actually at the Intercept are like, no. Glenn is a grown-ass adult who's having a temper tantrum, like, befitting that of a 7-year-old.
Glenn is a grown-ass child.
He's a grown-ass adult having, a temper tantrum like a child.
100% disagree, but...
He's objecting to, like, the existence of editors. And they're like, how did you get through, like, freshman English without, like, having to deal with someone, like, proofreading your work or editing it?
I have very mixed feelings about Greenwald and a lot of the narratives about, like, free speech, because my initial tendency is always to favor free speech because I know that at some point it's going to get turned back on the left. But, like, the longer that I've been in this fucking scene, the less relevant that becomes, because literally every single thing that has ever happened, whether it relates to us, whether it's good, whether we even know it happened, will get turned back on us. It doesn't matter what's true anymore. It's just kind of what resonates with people and what doesn't.
I think you can have slander laws like they have in Europe that aren't turned back on the left because the things that they prohibit are specifically targeting identity. And that's some of the most dangerous and problematic of, quote, free speech.
But I mean, it's already been in the United States. Like, anybody can glean anti-Semitism out of a fucking vacuum.
Again, see Jeremy Corbyn. I think it boils down to a question of, do you think that socialists are going to be in charge of the state or in charge of major capitalist corporations that run our internet commerce platforms and all that anytime soon? If the answer is no, then favoring what are fundamentally libertarian assumptions about freedom of speech not having application to private property in the sense of online platforms is fundamentally one that will and has led to the deplatforming and silencing the left. Like, Facebook has already started cracking down, like they banned CrimethInc, they banned a decent number of Antifa and anarchist related pages. I think ultimately we're going to end up paying a pretty steep price for undermining civil liberties related to freedom of speech. I can never think of a time in American history, honestly, where it's been the left doing the censorship and not the one receiving it.
Right. And also, I mean, whenever we have like a First Amendment discussion, it's not just freedom of speech. It's the freedom of press. There's a difference between not being monetized and literal hate speech.
Biden's actually got a lead with like 73% of the votes counted in Florida. Did not expect that to happen.
Oh, so Florida has the largest please vote by mail mailing to registered voters Democrats only in the country. The lead is like 1.2 million requests to vote there. I will be very sad as someone who sent many ballots as I care about the election, but I can't say anything positive about the candidate I prefer. But Cambridge as a whole has sent something like 200,000 postcards asking people to register to vote by mail.
Yeah, in most states you can't start counting mail-in ballots until, the in-person polls have opened on the day of the election.
Joe, do we have any electoral updates? Do.
Starting to think that Biden has leads 50.4 to 48.8 in Florida with estimated 78% of the vote counted. But I think he's going to start running out of steam soon because the large Democratic urban counties, he's running out of votes. In Miami-Dade, it's estimated that 86% of the votes have already been counted. And a lot of the more red counties, there are a lot more votes left in those places. So
I just finished my first beer.
So what are the implications, Joe?
I mean, honestly, I did not predict him to carry Florida at all, so the fact that he's doing this well is honestly a surprise to me.
Florida is in the arms of the Biden.
Wow. So what, if we're thinking Florida, we're thinking Biden takes it, what are we thinking? Are we thinking it's coup watch 2020? What's going on?
I think it's a little early. We'll have a better idea in 20 minutes, maybe.
Dude, that's the whole fun of the fucking thing, is you make bad predictions, we make fun of you in 20 minutes, and then we move on. I'm sorry, I'm not having a great day today.
Yeah, I'm very on edge tonight.
I went into flight mode yesterday morning and I slept 4 hours because I was full of nervous energy. And then I made a go bag list on one of our whiteboards, all the shit that I would need to leave the house on a short notice if I did. We're through the looking glass here, people. I know I always say that.
So we should abolish the Senate, yes?
The Democrats look poised to take the Senate, so...
But the institution itself, my God.
That too.
The Senate is a problem, and the Senate will continue to become more of a problem as we coalesce population in a smaller number of states and a few cities, and more 70% of the Senate is going to be elected by 30% of the population, and it's shitty.
More of a problem as the American empire is its decline goes from being a managed kind of gradual decline into falling off the side of a cliff.
Well, rather than falling off a cliff, I was thinking just crumbling into the sea.
I mean, in terms of a gradual decline, just extreme and rapid.
You really didn't pick up on my joke at all, so
you could say it again, and I will say
it again.
Say it slowly this time.
No, I can't do it now. The vibe is gone. The vibe has passed.
Joe, I just love how literal you take things. It's adorable.
Social cues. Sue me.
I just said it's great quality. I love it.
We fucking love you.
Aw, thanks.
I'd actually be curious, kind of do a gut check around the room. If you had to pick one or the other, who would you say wins tonight?
I think Biden will get 305 electoral votes. He will win the election without winning Texas, Georgia, or Florida. Or Ohio, for that matter. Or Iowa.
Very specific.
Well, can I ask for a clarification? Do you mean, who's going to be the projected winner by the end of the night and the accepted projected winner? Because, we're going to have two different narratives going on, regardless of what happens.
January, whatever, who's on the stage at the White House, shaking hands, kissing babies, getting sworn in again. The person who ends up in the White House and stays there. I'm thinking Trump, to be honest.
Tucker Carlson.
Just to explain my reasoning for Trump, at least. For one, there is a bit of an incumbent advantage, but also just this year, normally you feel like you'd have a good trend of who would win, but it seems like there have been a lot of events that would help Trump. There have been a lot of events that would help Biden. There have also been ones that would hurt them a bunch, and I just not really sure how it all balances out at the end. At the beginning of the year, I would have said, Trump will most likely win because the economy's strong. The things are going decent enough for most of the populace. There's not a giant pandemic or anything around. But now, things have certainly changed. I don't know. I wouldn't rule them out. I get a sense that, mail-in votes have a higher rate of getting thrown out towards all kind of of different foul ups than, in-person votes do. And there's a very strong partisan lean towards voting methods like mail-in votes are mostly Democrats. In-person votes at this point are leaning heavily Republican. It just takes a few states like Pennsylvania, Florida, Trump's got it. And Florida, you've got that large population of, Venezuelan and Cuban exiles that are very heavily, hardcore Republican voters. I wouldn't rule them out either as swaying the state.
The thing is, though, is the mail-in vote is going to be what ultimately decides what's going to happen. And the floodgates have opened in terms of turnout because it's easier for people to vote this cycle. And Democrats tend to win in higher turnout elections.
Something sketchy is definitely happening, though. I ordered my external hard drive that was basically overnight shipping, and it got stuck in Everett and hasn't moved for 2 days. So, if that's indicative of any larger patterns with mail, then, who the fuck knows what's going to happen? I don't think there's going to be any way to know, and there's going to be two narratives.
You mean any way to know tonight?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was getting more drinks, so.
My guess is that we won't know tonight. My guess is that they're not going to finish counting everything in Florida.
Joe, what are you doing?
I'm pretty sure that Florida will go Democrat just because turnout operation has been so fucking good there. That said, I don't know about turnout operation anywhere else. Things tend to lean more Democrat as we get more turnout, but that's not even true for every county in Massachusetts. It's certainly not true for every district in Massachusetts. Trying to generalize that to a country, if it doesn't go that way, I will have to reassess some of my priors about what the average person in the United States believes.
As Biden's lead in Florida begins to crumble.
I just pulled up a New York Times article. They're showing right now Trump is up 3.4 points in Florida with 81% in. They're putting a 95% likelihood of Trump victory.
Yeah, that's...
that would super surprise me.
Did we just reach the top of the roller coaster about to go down?
New York Times has both tied at 49.5 with 81% reporting in Florida.
See, this is exactly what I'm saying. We have no idea which one of those is correct at all. We would be completely speculating.
It's guaranteed that we won't know because Pennsylvania won't start opening the mail-in ballots until tomorrow.
Okay, and with that said, because there's this whole fucking narrative of Trump's gonna call it at midnight, and that's not a fucking thing. There's no law in the books, electoral law anywhere that says that an election has to be called the night of, especially in a presidential election. But the problem with this whole fucking narrative is that the media is running with it and is giving it credence.
Well, he doesn't actually have the power to do that.
I know, but the media is giving it to him.
Let's be real here. Whenever there is a seriously contested electoral conundrum, the Democrats fold like a soggy noodle.
I would say it's more like they basically just roll over on the floor.
All right, they roll over on the floor like a soggy noodle.
They don't want to have to deliver anything or actually do anything for people. They just kind of want to be we're not the Republicans, which is why we really need to go about splitting off of the Democrats and getting separate from all that garbage. God.
Yes, thank you.
If you have an idea how to track what Yes on 1 and Yes on 2 are doing in Massachusetts, that would be really cool. Not that this has anything to do with right to repair, but I'm also really curious about right to repair, and that hasn't had good polls. What? Are you crazy?
I'm just kidding.
I more strongly believe in right
Fuck
to
them
repair
dealerships
than
is what I
do.
meant.
Oh, that's much better. But
that's what I actually mean.
If you're not careful, your car is going to blow up and next time you go to get it serviced.
Bring it, Joker. I'm ready.
Your GPS is going to fucking talk back to you.
I don't have a car. I haven't had a car for 10 years.
Freshly made tractor software.
And the polls in Massachusetts don't close for another 2 minutes. So there is no way to know how question 2 is doing yet.
I guess they could have exit polls, but from the time I've worked at polls in Massachusetts, you have the bulk of the results within an hour. So I'm hoping, I guess mail-in is going to be another complication, but the polling on Yes on 2 looked too close to comfort for me.
See, I told you Massachusetts was going to fuck it up.
So what I want to ask you guys about your thoughts on Charlie Baker's timing for rolling out the, what is it, overnight stay-at-home advisory.
Personally, fine with it, but it's stupid.
What happened? This is actually the first time I've hearing this.
What do you think was the purpose of doing that at that particular time? I think it was yesterday, right?
Are you talking about a coronavirus-related thing or a curfew for fear of social unrest. Like, what are you talking about?
He announced that as of Friday, we were going to have a curfew, and I'm curious what you guys think about that as it pertains to, like, what do you think the political messaging around that was supposed to be, and what impact do you think that will have on organizing? Because he said that political events would be excluded from that lockdown.
I'll be honest, I'm pretty lockdown skeptical as far as things go. Like, at this point, it seems like no matter what, the de facto strategy is herd immunity, in the sense of it's out there, it's burning through, no track and trace is viable at this point. I think a lot of it's just kind of, in terms of lockdown, in terms of like the 9:30 curfew, that kind of thing, it's just kind of security theater, like what you see at the TSA at the airports, a way of signaling that your government is taking something very seriously while it's kind of detached from measures that would actually crack down on it. Basically, I see the way this whole thing is shaking out is to have been in kind of the worst possible way for like the working class in Massachusetts and everywhere else, where, you know, you get a whole lot of restrictions that don't really have a lot of medical backing or general scientific basis behind them, but combined with no real assistance or aid to the people that are currently out of the jobs, you know, facing rent crises, that kind of thing. Like, countries significantly poorer than the United States have given far more aid to their citizens.
Vietnam.
It's Baker doing like, well, we're not going to do anything to help you, but we're going to do something to make it look like we're doing something. Also, it is 8:02 p.m. and they've already called Massachusetts for Joe Biden. And also,
or yes on one, yes on two, or actually
Trump
three
is
and
taking the
four.
lead in Florida.
Here we go.
Woo!
Who you vote for? I'm just kidding.
Actually, that would be funny. Everyone go around the room, say who you voted for. I'll start. I voted for Hawkins.
I also voted for Hawkins.
I also voted for Hawkins.
I wrote in Bernie Sanders.
That's cute. I voted for Hawkins. Also wrote in Helena Fontes.
We got any Biden cells
Delaney
out
was my
tonight?
congresswoman.
Will, you're not saying?
I'm trying to even know if I'm logged in. I'm a chump. I actually voted Biden.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh, come on.
Got a cuck here.
Yeah, me too.
Solidarity with the
Cuck
rest
club.
of the country
Cuck
is
club,
perfectly
Will.
reasonable.
I'm just
And it
kidding.
was funny.
I really did. I literally
like my people.
literally could not give a shit who anybody voted for, but I do think it's funny that most of us voted for Hawkins, even though we had such a heated discussion about like the importance of voting for Biden versus not voting for Biden.
I sent a
You're
good
like
2,500 postcards to Florida. Like, damn it.
Well, sadly, it would seem that your postcards kit have been in vain.
Brutal.
I thought the conclusion of our discussion was that in Massachusetts it doesn't fucking matter because
Even
as
Epstein
you
didn't
can
kill
see,
himself.
it
I
went to
listened to
bye.
that. I finished listening to that episode like right after I sent in my ballot too. So I was like, oh, well, yeah, that's fine.
Oh man, we cocked you. We cockified you.
No,
Sorry,
it's fine.
man.
I mean, in my sense, my 2 cents in that whole discussion was I figure for whatever reason I want to have if it does end up going by, and I want it to be so one-sided that like there's no mandate to Trump that he can even if it all comes from Massachusetts or states, it doesn't matter. Just to shut him the fuck up.
Hold on a second. What I'm going to do is I want to get us all on mic giving like a proper introduction with name and pronoun. So I'm going to put in the show notes names in order.
We've already had other people here who have left, Will, so
Good point.
That worked.
I suppose I'll begin. Okay, my name is Scott. He, him. I'm gonna popcorn to Mr. My brother.
You
Will.
didn't hear me? I said I was putting the names in the fucking chat.
I'm sorry, I'm just all over the place right now. I've had 2 beers.
That was like 3/4 of my sentence.
I apologize.
What you drinking?
Me drinking Stella right now.
I'm eating, wow. I'm drinking Hootie.
No.
From 6 Point Brewery.
Get on the mic and introduce yourselves, because people can't see the chat in post.
Yeah, the chat's, he's posting this in show notes. I apologize for my drunken stupidity.
All right, so, Joe. Wow.
Don't we love him?
Get something else, sorry. Voted for Howie Hawkins.
No, Jesus Christ.
Your name,
right.
a little blurb about you, your pro dance.
Thank you so much, Joe.
You're welcome. I am Joe, he, him, and I voted for Howie Hawkins. Am I supposed to popcorn it to someone?
No, it's Scott. I don't know why he...
I'm Scott, he, him, and I wrote in our boy, Bernie Sanders.
Okay, I'm Trent, he, him. I voted Hawkins for president, and I ended up writing in like Joseph Stalin and Karl Marx for a bunch of uncontested positions.
Nice, bro. Kit.
I'm Kit. They, them. I voted yes on 1 and yes on 2.
Ellie.
I'm Ellie. They, them. I voted for Biden, but I also voted yes on 1 and 2. And for Ed Markey, our boy Ed Markey.
Our boy. Trent. Oh, wait, you don't even. Will.
I'm Will, he, him, and I voted against Stephen Lynch.
Very smooth, my dude.
I don't even know the dude's name. He's some like green climate. I don't know what the hell the party was. He's like a total weird long-haired dude, but I hope he wins. He will.
The Green Climate Party?
Dude, I don't even know he was on the ballot. They showed a picture of him on the news earlier saying he was challenging him. He's like this bearded, long hair, wearing a flannel. I'm like, yeah, this guy's cool. It's fine.
How old is he?
He's young.
All right, sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
And I'm Jesse. He, him. I voted for Hawkins. I would have written in La Riva, but she did not make the Massachusetts write-in.
Yeah. So what if the guy threw a shoe at me?
Thank you all.
Will.
Yeah.
Pizzagate.
I don't know shit about Pizzagate.
Real?
Was it real? I mean, yeah. Didn't some dude like swat a pizza shop or something?
Yeah, some dude shut up pizza shop.
Because he
Epstein.
thought they were
3 years ago.
involved with the ring of...
Who killed Mr. Epstein?
We're never going to know the answer to that. We're just never going to know.
It was Hillary Clinton. She went in there and did it by
There is a
hand.
correct.
Yeah.
All you have to say is not himself.
I mean, I have a feeling
God
that
did it.
anybody.
It was God.
I mean, I'm just waiting for the day that Jillisan Maxwell or whatever ends up committing suicide by shooting herself in the back of the head 20 times with an AK-47 or something. There was an actual journalist during the Iraq War in the UK. I forget his name, but they claimed that he killed himself by basically putting himself inside a sealed bag and throwing himself into a body of water, and they ruled it a suicide. He
dismembered
He
himself.
was like leaking on Tony Blair's whole thing.
What was he working on when he got killed?
My understanding is that he was a journalist investigating why the validity of the WOD claims, and there was an implication that Tony Blair was sitting on information related to those claims being bullshit. And lo and behold, he ends up horribly dead, just like the U.S. scientist that was involved in the whole anthrax thing, in early 2001, not long after 9/11. You go on the left, and there's a lot of strange deaths over the years.
Or the journalist in Malta who reported the Panama Papers who got car bombed.
For real? Damn.
Yeah, she.
Texas is blue right now. Just want to point that out.
Well, that's only because of Houston is like one of the only municipalities that's reporting right now.
Yeah, no, I know. It's a very fascinating state.
Texas is one of the only states that over time, like as the results come in, trends from blue to red. In the rest of the states, as the cities come in,
Ohio is one of those states. Ohio is also a state that starts up blue because like the big cities like Cleveland and Columbus report first. And then like the key of rural red Ohio starts to trickle in, and it just drowns out like the 3 major cities in Ohio. So Ohio looks red and it looks blue now, but it's going to eventually go red, I'm assuming.
I have a feeling that part of the dynamic in Texas is that like white people live in the city and like the rural communities are...
It's a lot more integrated than people think it is.
Integrated?
Yeah, I mean, I used to live in Texas. It's a mixture of both, like rural and urban. I wouldn't say that there's a strong lean either towards white or Latino. But interestingly enough, like obviously Texas was part of Mexico before it was part of the United States. The people that were Mexican citizens and stayed in the area after the Texas Revolution, they tend to be right-wing as hell and often kind of have a lot of hostility towards current Mexican immigrants. They're generally called Tejanos is the term, for Texas residents that were, Mexican citizens and then stayed in the country. It's an odd political development.
Why do you think that is? Like, do you understand the history about that?
Sure. So part of it is that obviously if you didn't want to leave for Mexico, often that was for the reason of you possessed land, you possessed assets in Texas. One of the things, at least leading up to the Texas Revolution, though not the sole reason, was that Mexico had recently banned slavery, and a decent number of the American citizens that moved into the province of Texas still practiced slavery and wanted to continue it. So interestingly, the treaties that the United States made with Mexico after that conflict and several others said that Mexican citizens specifically were exempt from Jim Crow and similar laws governing segregation and the like. So to an extent, I think that the Mexican citizens inhabiting Texas that stayed on didn't really get the same kind of flack, and often tended to be disproportionately people that owned a decent amount of property in the state beforehand. And they were pretty heavily courted as a political bloc by Texas Republicans in the same way that Cuban exiles were heavily courted by Florida Republicans. It's an interesting dynamic. Like, you'll hear people say, that these ethnic groups, whatever, overwhelmingly break for a certain political group. But when you look deep down, there are interesting subdivisions that happen to be along class lines. Who would have figured?
It is a mystery.
Wasn't Jim Crow just a series of state-passed laws? Like, they never passed in Texas, but, it was just a whole bunch of state-based things. There was nothing national.
I mean, there were federal restrictions on immigration from non-white countries, but legally speaking, the legal status of Mexican citizens was in the United States was white. As part of the treaties, again, one of the bargaining points was that former Mexican nationals living in the provinces annexed by the United States would not be subject to segregation and things like that. So, there were certainly state-level laws, but they were primarily applied against Native Americans and the small black population that existed in those areas. I mean, even in World War II, for example, the U.S. military had segregated units of white and black, but Latino soldiers were put in white units partially as a result of those treaties with Mexico.
Also important to note that even though Jim Crow is not throughout the country, there was segregation by law or by practice throughout the entire country. And even if it wasn't a law, it was such ingrained in practice that it didn't matter. And it's also important to note that things like redlining, which was a law, was not just in the South, but throughout the entire country. And interracial marriage was banned for a while in the North. It was abolished quicker, interracial marriages being illegal, than it was in the South. But for a time, interracial marriage was illegal throughout the entire United States.
Yeah, the Northern attitude towards slavery was very much
Yeah, the North still had sundown towns and stuff.
Let's get another thing straight too. The Southern states only needed a 10% threshold to be adopted back into the Union.
Yeah, something like that.
Pretty much nothing changed. It was just a politically expedient thing.
Well, the British were trying to fund and arm the South because they thought it was an easy way to try to soften up the United States for a potential attempt at recolonization. And that's why Lincoln comes out with the Emancipation Proclamation to make it about, even though it always was about slavery, to make it explicitly about slavery so as to deter the British from taking any further interest in getting involved in the Civil War, because slavery had been abolished in the UK for 30 years by that point.
What's funny is you can actually look at the currency exchange rates for Confederate money compared to U.S. money and get a sense of exactly when the British and French felt that, the Confederacy was done for and the war had a predetermined outcome. Because for a while, the conversion rates for Confederate money into Great Britain pounds or French, whatever they have, were fairly strong. But roughly around 1862, I believe, it suddenly went to where nobody would take Confederate money. And at that point, it became pretty obvious that they figured the war was going to end one way or the other.
I mean, at the end of the day, it was still all about capital. It was about the North wanted to remain profitable in its, what's it called? Not manufacturing.
It totally is manufacturing. It's a whole bunch of processing was in the North. And a whole bunch of people who are in the North owned some amount of shares in businesses that were partially processing that happened in the North, and partially generally included some of the source plantations. So a lot of people in the North, or anyone who was owning stocks, would own some amount of a slave plantation or shares of a slave plantation. So the idea of the South succeeding would mean that they would lose a whole shit ton of shares.
On the surface, they could claim to be anti-slavery, but in practice, it was that they didn't want to live with black people, and they were okay with slavery happening as long as it was profitable for them.
I mean, that might be a bit uncharitable. Obviously, I mean, if you look at the North, at that point, those states had overwhelmingly abolished slavery. I believe that Washington, D.C. and Delaware were the only ones that had it in any form, at the point the war broke out.
Still had it.
But certainly the primary motivation was initially seen as, preserving the Union, fighting against secessionists. And by the time of the Emancipation Proclamation had changed to, a crusade against slavery. I do think there are some interesting arguments, at least from a Marxist perspective, perspective that what you're seeing with the Civil War was kind of a last clash between, capitalism versus a more feudal economy in the South. And that in the aftermath of the Civil War, I mean, I've flat out heard some groups like Platypus or whatnot, they'll refer to the American Civil War as the Second American Revolution, because for a time, at least in the immediate aftermath, you had about as close as the United States ever got to a democratic republic in the sense of, armed freemen and, Union soldiers, redistribution of land, just kind of a radical upending of the political system. Certainly, ended tragically, but you could say there was a time where it was seen as, truly transformative and a great moment of hope. Like Karl Marx famously had a lot of correspondence with Abraham Lincoln.
It was the
over
only
it.
time we touched land reform.
You're talking about the Reconstruction period?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then Lincoln was assassinated.
The reason Reconstruction ended was because
1877 compromise, baby.
It was
fucking the worst thing that we ever did.
the Republicans made a compromise with the Democrats because the Democrat had a plurality of the Electoral College, but the Republican had the popular votes. And so the deal was that the Republican candidate would become president in exchange for a withdrawal of federal troops from the South and the end to Reconstruction.
Troops who were enforcing the Reconstruction. Yes. So that is the great sin of America, was the 1877 compromise, carried over from the slavery, obviously.
I'm getting some real AP US history flashbacks from this conversation.
Yeah, how did we get on the Civil War from the election?
Thinking about that myself.
Civil War II is coming, baby.
Aisha, do you want to introduce yourself? I think we did introductions before you got on.
My name is Aisha, you, she, her pronouns. I am a member of DSA.
And who did you vote for?
I voted for the Green Party.
Good.
Most of us did. It's
So
okay.
most of us.
Yeah, and I voted yes on 2 and 1.
Oh, hell yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Ooh,
She was currently trailing 61.3 to 38.7.
2 is trailing?
But there's only about
You said 2. Told you the state's gonna fuck it up.
it's only 0.5% in.
I had a piece prepared to talk about the election, actually. I kind of prepared something to say.
Okay.
I think the fact that Joe Biden ran for president shows a lot of ego. And I think the main reason why Joe Biden ran for president is because he felt demasculinized by being the vice president for a black guy. And I feel like that this was purely for his ego. I do not feel like he did this to restore the soul of the nation or whatever. I haven't really heard a lot of people say that, and I just feel like that's important. I know that I don't know, I don't really have a lot of political analysis because I think what Jesse wrote I think was pretty good. And I've seen similar political analysis from Socialist Alternative and Socialist Revolutions. I don't really feel the need to give my point, but I do feel that it is important to note that I do feel that Joe Biden purely ran for his ego, and I do not feel that he ran because he really wanted to help. And
I say that's a pretty fair assessment, yeah.
and I just find,
I think that definitely
She's got more, guys. Hold on.
I just find it so weird how so many people went from defund the police one week and then I love Kamala, she's amazing the next week.
I know.
Just the political analysis of people is I'm just wow, I feel like we got so far with the defund the police movement. We had gotten so far. And then I feel like all the stuff that's happened with Kamala girl boss stuff has just really brought it down.
It's brainworms.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I got.
That was the name of our first episode.
Or people don't think particularly deeply about it. People have an idea of what they believe, but they don't necessarily go in and dig into what they're looking at. So someone can be I am pro-black, therefore I'm anti-police violence, therefore I think we should probably defund the police. I see a black woman without looking at who this black woman is and what she represents. And that's a really easy thing to do, especially with someone who doesn't have particularly much time or energy to look into this and isn't surrounded by people who are looking into this, who are looking at some of those intricacies or just details.
I'm actually talking more about liberals who spend all their time reading politics. I know this one liberal woman, she's a lawyer in what's the word for when you get your kid taken away by the state?
Department of Children and Family Services?
Yeah, she's a lawyer for that, and she's very politically involved. And I saw her post a post about defunding the police, and was oh wow, okay, for your politics, she voted for war, and I was okay, wow, this is pretty good, wow, okay, we're getting somewhere. And then she was like, I love Kamala. Oh my God. And like, this is somebody who like spends a lot of their time like reading Politics Fair, like more like liberal publications and like not like socialist stuff. But like, yeah, it's just been like very interesting. I've seen that a lot. Like I've had friends who are like very politically involved, or even if it's not like they love Kamala, but like I've seen just so many people go the whole like vote Biden to vote out fascism. And I'm like, you can't vote.
Yeah.
That's like,
there's like a billion.
You can't ask fascists to like leave nicely.
well, for me, it's just more like, okay, like let's say like a human being has cancer. There are so many cancers like you can't eradicate it with surgery, or like even if you like get rid of it with like chemotherapy, like it's still kind of like there. And, like I feel like people need to understand that like fascism is like cancer. It's not like the flu.
It goes into remission, is what you're saying. Absolutely,
Yeah.
But it doesn't go away. Yeah. It's a good take.
Excuse me, Mr. Fascism, can you leave?
Yes, please,
Mr.
thank you,
Fascist.
Mr. Fascist.
I mean, it's tricky too, just because what people call fascism today is like so vastly removed from what it was in the 1930s.
I know. That was what I still feel like I kind of just need to, like, for my own sanity, read the thing that I prepared, but like...
Yeah, I was about to say, whenever you want to transition to that, I think go off my boy.
To point out that North Carolina is actually blue, with about half the estimated vote counted, and Trump's lead in Florida is gotten a little bit bigger.
Here we go.
Yep, and in terms of electoral votes, it's 85-61 in Biden's favor. We'll tell you when that changes.
Although, in reality, like, you'll know more than we know by the time you're listening to this.
But Jesse, you were saying about your piece?
Oh, yeah. So I was going to do an entire, like, Rabid Radlib segment on it, but it felt like it was very petty in this, like, particular period of time going into the actual definition of fascism, because there was, like, oh, God. It was so... I think I deleted it off my fucking profile because I knew I was going to get a bunch of terrible responses, but it was, like, racism plus not wanting to give up the election equals fascism. And I was just like, you need a new calculator.
You spell boobless. Maybe that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you look at what exists today, like fascists in the 1930s, they had a very strong, street presence. They had a whole lot of backing kind of from elements of the capitalist class. They tended to be very strongly concentrated among the petite bourgeois sections of society. But if you look at what remaining exists of fascists today, if you can even call them that, because they're such an embarrassment compared to the predecessors, they tend to honestly draw from very similar demographics to the existing socialist movement, in the sense of downwardly mobile sons and daughters of people that you would consider petit bourgeois or capitalist class, tend to have worse job options, pretty online. There's a lot of odd parallels there, though it does seem like, thankfully, they've pretty much dried up and dwindled in a similar fashion to the 1990s militia movement after Oklahoma City. Just the fact that they went out to Charlottesville and that was meant to be their day in the sun and kind of an attempt to go mainstream, but instead you murder a woman in broad daylight. That's pretty hard to come back from PR-wise,
Oopsies.
Well, if we are using the, like, Comintern definition of fascism, which I like because it removes any of the particular sort of, like, ethno-state shit, because, again, it's not something that just naturally fucking arises. It's like you get indoctrinated in accordance with certain political messaging and principles that pertain to, like, the time that we're in, I don't really know how else to say it. Like, it seems like these categories are very arbitrary, but the things that remain the same are like co-opting populist left-wing messaging and working class language, and the sort of behind the scenes consolidating the capitalist interests with the interests of the state, and like hardening the police state. It doesn't look the same in every scenario.
I mean, Italian fascism didn't even really have the racialism, at least early on. Like Mussolini was saying things like that race was a feeling, not reality. It's 95% feeling, 5% fact. And then, of course, that changed later on. But, I mean, even in Brazil, you had a form of fascism that rejected racism in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
Broader nationalism.
Precisely. And it's like now I think even the GOP is coming around to sort of, there are some demographics that 10 years ago would have been completely like disavowed. Like the fact that Dave Rubin talks about how gay he is like all the time, and Dennis Prager is saying like, come on, keep shouting that shit out, like we love it, because it's now useful to the right wing to have like ostensibly oppressed people like doing their messaging for them. You know what I mean? mean?
Makes the right look slightly more palatable.
Right, because that's like that's where the populist energy is going. You know what I mean? Like that's how fascism creeps in. It draws from that populist energy. And if most people are fine with gay people, then like that's kind of how they have to change their messaging if they want to maintain a stronghold on power.
That's what dads they did a presentation on how more people of color are getting involved in the alt-right, and how the alt-right is fascist groups are becoming more interested in like attacking like working class people regardless of their race, because most of the people of color who are prone to like fascist alt-right ideology, like Candace Owens, grew up like in the suburbs.
I mean, she's not a fascist though. She's just a Republican.
You know what I mean?
But,
like,
no, but that's something I think about a lot. What you're talking about, it's a concern that I have, because
I wouldn't say that Candace Owens is a Republican so much as she's just a
useful idiot.
She's like a fucking libertarian.
No, I
show.
think she'll just say whatever she thinks can like get her like, you know.
She's
like,
a controversy machine. She's a click magnet. Yeah, I get it.
So interestingly, she got her career started, and initially she was pushing and trying to crowdfund a service that would basically dox. If you had online trolls going after you, her service would try to dox online trolls or something. She was kind of pushing that angle. Sometime around Gamergate-ish, she kind of flipped to the right end of the spectrum, but originally she was pushing very hard for this idea of, you know, I'll dox anyone who's going after you, which is an interesting political revolution, to say the least.
I would now actually like a definition of fascism, because I was considering the general Republican Party to be basically tending into fascism every time they would rather rig democracy than try and win the popular vote.
Now, before we get into that, I just want to say, speaking of the Republican Party, it was just announced that Mitch McConnell will win. Yeah, we're doing great.
I really don't give a fuck. Like in that case, I could hardly give a fuck. Like Amy McGrath is a terrible candidate. Awful. She did not deserve to win. I don't care how bad Mitch McConnell's fucking numbers are. Like she's a terrible candidate.
You know what's really funny though is like she so far has like 40% of the vote. She spent like $50 million on 40% of the vote.
$80 million.
You know, I feel like in many ways you can't really call what exists today fascism in the same sense as what exists in the 1930s, just because the historical context and everything is so completely different. But I would consider as essential elements, I mean, I don't really buy Umberto Eco's framing, because honestly, a lot of that you could apply to elements of the left. To be honest, the definitions are so vague. But corporatism seems to be a very strong component. General view of basically of international politics and international relations as a survival of the fittest kind of thing between races rather than between nation states, usually characterized by a very
like
powerful
social Darwinism.
Essentially, yeah. Like the idea that, you know, when Germany competes with other countries, it's not like the state of Germany, it's equivalent with the German race or something. The corporatism, and I'd say also just an element of general romanticism in the sense of, if you look at communists and a lot of these relevant movements, there's a sense you're looking towards the future. There's an idea you're kind of a continuation of the Enlightenment. There's an element of you're not looking to the past, I guess, for inspiration.
We're not returning to an era. We are creating a new one.
Exactly. In the case of fascism, it's, you know, it's very backwards focused in the sense of this organic nationhood. So I do in many ways honestly think that fascism was kind of a 1930s, 1940s specific ideology. And what we have today, it's certainly a dangerous form of far-right populism. But, you know, outside of maybe political context, I don't know if I would even call it the same thing. Like it has a potential to become the same thing perhaps, but it's just so radically different. Like if you look at there's just that disconnect from state power, the economic critiques are different. Just so many of the ingredients that had to be there after World War I, you know, the Great Depression, the massive just burnout, radicalized combat veterans, just those ingredients are missing. And in a similar way that, like, you know, a lot of socialists today, you'll say you're a Marxist-Leninist or something, but what does that mean without a Soviet Union? What does that mean without a party structure? It's just kind of unmoored from anything, any historical context of what that had at one point. Does that make any sense?
That does. I've struggled with that a lot, because up until like, I don't know, maybe the past couple of months, I would always call myself a Marxist-Leninist, and then like, I guess over time I've realized that like, I'm not just a Marxist-Leninist, like I'm a communist, you know what I mean? Because we aren't transitioning from like a tsardom to a, you know, a worker state. Like we're trying to grapple with capitalism, and like like we are in the belly of the beast. You know what I mean? We're not living in like the same kind of conditions where we have like plantations or we're not like a European satellite state.
Exactly. Like even in the context when people talk today about being anti-imperialist, that had a very different meaning when that kind of terminology came about, you know, initially in the use by, let's say, Lenin and co., but later on in the usage of anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism after the Second World War, during the beginning of the Cold War. Like the context is just so radically different when you don't have an international, you don't have like communist movements rebelling against colonial overlords in so many provinces. It's really just a completely different framework. But because in many ways the left lacks historical consciousness, and because in some ways I think we've kind of stagnated in a lot of ways, there's just not much of an understanding. Just in the sense of like, if I said I was an anti-imperialist today, that means perhaps you don't want Venezuela, Syria, whatever invaded. You know, you're against aggressive U.S. foreign policy. But in the 1940s, 1950s, that meant a very different thing in terms of like global strategy.
Not only like the historical context is different, but also like it's a different kind of imperialism now. It's like a whole other animal, because back in the 40s and the 50s, we're talking about like what is classically understood as imperialism, like the actual like occupation and like physical exploitation of another nation state through forcible arms. Whereas nowadays, the context we have it now, it's more of a neo-colonialism where it's the core is exploiting the periphery, not through like physical means, but through economic means and through social means. Like it's the economic sphere of influence and exploitation and coercion through the IMF, the WTO, or multinational corporations who are coming in that are based in other countries, coming in and taking and extracting the resources of a state in the periphery. And
we're not stealing land and people, we're stealing markets.
We're stealing markets. We're still stealing like resources, but we're no longer imperialist nations of the core are no longer have a physical presence in the periphery. In the vernacular of like Emanuel Wallerstein,
it's much easier to cut a check to a local strongman than it is to pay for controlling a place physically.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, we have drones now, so like it's not like we have to physically go anywhere.
That's also true.
So what about Jesse's article, though? I feel like we should get on that subject.
I was actually going to ask, before we move on from this, how you feel about how gender actually ends up playing into all of fascism now then, because I guess masculinity and violence and semi-traditional gender roles, or at least a certain idea of manhood, were certainly out there in historical fascism. And I'm not quite sure how those quite are set up now, or you see them being set up now.
I think women are useful to the right wing if they can emasculate left-wing men. So they never really serve a central role except to be the messenger for typically masculine right-wing messaging. Like Caitlyn Bennett, you know what I mean? Like she's badass because she calls all the lefties like soy boys and cucks, but like chances are there's not a single right-wing fucking gun nut that like would actually want her to be the head of a household or out working while the husband stays at home. Or, I mean, for that matter, in a non-heterosexual relationship.
I mean, I wouldn't consider her a fascist, though. Again, she's just kind of a pretty bog-standard right-winger.
I have to get going soon because I have work at 6 a.m. What I did want to say is, I mean, Mussolini in the 40s, like very much like wanted women to like procreate, and so did Hitler. And the anti-abortion stuff to me seems pretty much in line with that.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's really where you see the patriarchy show up in the alt-right, is the abortion debates.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is like another aspect of fascism is like the idea of purity, like religious and ethnic purity.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Peace.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, no problem. I'll try and stop by next week. I don't think I'll be working then, so.
Cool. I don't know what our recording schedule is going to look like because shit's going to get crazy.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I'm still working on it, so I haven't completely finished conclusions, but it's a book called Male Fantasies. I forget the name of the author, but it was basically just an in-depth examination of the sexual and romantic lives of a lot of prominent Nazis and just their really odd relationships with women and kind of complexes towards them. It kind of has some interesting implications, at least from what I read so far, but you definitely get the sense with the modern alt-right that there's not so much the idea of, even they've kind of internalized some ideas that would have been seen as radically egalitarian or feminist to like Nazis in the 1940s. times change. It's weird. It's very weird, but
we live in strange times.
Yeah.
I see that, but I still see so many more like gay male fascists than lesbian fascists. And not to say that lesbian fascists don't exist, it just isn't really a thing.
True. Think like Ernst Röhm in the brown shirts. There were an odd number of like high-ranked homosexuals in the early Nazi party for sure.
Yeah.
But Indiana was just called for Trump. And also Trump's lead in Florida is continuing to expand. He now has a 300,000 vote lead in Florida. And Biden's lead in Texas just got cut in half by about a point.
Did we establish earlier if Florida was including mail-in ballots, or is this all just like who's casting votes today?
No, this is, I said earlier that Florida they count the mail-in and the in-person at the same time.
Okay.
But the problem is we have no idea, how many votes are left. Everyone's just kind of guessing how many votes are left to just keep counting until there are no more votes to count. Turnout must have been massive because there's already been about 10.5 million votes counted.
Do we have anything for Massachusetts yes on 2 or the repair shop question?
I'm looking at yes on 2 with 6% of the vote reported. Yes on 2 is trailing 48.4 to 51.6.
Wow. Very disappointed.
I don't know how everybody thinks it's this complicated thing, like this ranked choice. I just don't.
Is that what the opposition was saying? Was that their argument? Is that it's complicated?
Yeah, everybody says it's just going to complicate voting. It's really not hard.
Yeah, they were literally my partner and I were looking at the ballot last night, and yeah, they're literally just trying to sow confusion. They're going to be it's going to be too confusing, so don't do it.
Voted no one won because she was confused.
Fuck it. It's just it's like the easier something is to refute with terrible logic, if it's more concise, then people can grab onto it. Question 1 is a little bit more confusing to refute because it doesn't really, you have to frame it weirdly, but question 2, you can just talk directly out of your ass and say oh, it's just confusing. People will be oh, okay, I know what that means.
It's just literally lies, bold-faced lies is the no argument.
I mean, people are making no arguments that are reasonable if you don't understand what's happening. It is very rare that in primaries you end up with 2 progressive champions running against each other. Not that it doesn't happen, but it is very rare because normally one of them will drop out and people will coalesce behind another person because endorsements talk to each other. There are people who are looking at recent sets of elections and being no, Orlando Ramos and Denise Hurst didn't split the vote, not realizing that some people may have preferred Denise but saw that Orlando got all of these endorsements and therefore went all in with him because, well, the unions endorsed him because he was for a union, so let's go in for him. The thing was not about yes, you could have had a split, but you didn't. And in the more common case, someone would just drop out.
Where was that race? Or is that...
I don't think I actually know the district, but it's Springfield.
Was that Joe Kennedy's? Or whichever Kennedy?
So this is for the state house.
Got it.
I have no, presumably they're also caring about Kennedy's, but this is the state house rates for a state house district. If you want one that I know names for, I think 17th Suffolk was 2 very progressive candidates. Those Stephanie Eckert and Brandy Funker Oakley. And
what was that last?
Brandy Funker Oakley and Stephanie Eckert were the 2 progressive candidates. There was actually a 3rd progressive candidate who chose to drop out, who was a white guy running in a majority-minority district, who used to be the legislative aide to the incumbent who wasn't running anymore. And then Jovan, who didn't run a real campaign and also was pro-police. But the 4th candidate dropped out, the white guy who was also progressive dropped out. And then people saw that there was a threat and kind of rallied behind Brandy, which is pretty cool.
I wonder if this is part of the reason that ranked choice is having a little bit of a challenge, because that's a really localized race. And they were talking earlier about the race in Kennedy's old seat that lost. And then you ended up with the ex-Republican Auchincloss, or however you pronounce his name. And it seems like the same people. What's that?
I believe it's Auchincloss.
Auchincloss, my mistake. But it's interesting that I wonder if it's the same people who have no no really concern for down ballot races are the same ones that are just so easy at brushing off. Like, oh, ranked choice is confusing, not realizing like how it actually would have been super useful in both of those races just this one year.
Honestly, it would simplify almost all of the problems that come with like primary dynamics, like the way that Bernie got fucked because all of the other candidates decided to drop out simultaneously.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like you're voting for the candidate. It feels like you're voting for like opposing cliques of like, I don't know, it's just gross. I fucking hate voting. It's not enjoyable. It would be enjoyable if I could rank people.
Yeah, it is now 9:00 and the polls have closed, and the rest of all of Texas is now closed because the western part of Texas, the polls had closed it. They are now closed. Polls have now closed in Arizona, Colorado, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the western part of Michigan, and New York.
So, they split up Michigan? That's interesting.
Yeah, apparently Michigan, part of it closes at 9:00 and the rest of the state closes at 8.
Gosh damn, Lower Peninsula. And that's a perfect time for Jesse. You want to take it and go into your people for real now? As we have kept for the past half hour.
That was not the perfect time, but thank you for the segue. In lieu of Rabid Radlibs, but I think I'm going to throw the intro in right here anyways. Let's pretend that the intro is in there. Okay.
Rocks hard.
Along that vein, I started with a comic that it's split up into 4 panels, and it says, vote like your life depends on it. And it has a kid in a cage, a polar bear on a melting piece of ice, a black man being choked by a cop, and a guy like dying in a hospital bed, because that was like a really cringy thing that I saw today. Ahem. I'm sure it was apparent in the last episode that I'm having a difficult time processing this election and the attitudes surrounding it. I've been feeling exceedingly hopeless about our struggle as more people become vocal about the importance of voting in the general over the past several weeks. The following is not an indictment. It's what I need to say in order to feel like I'm doing my part. It is my belief that many self-described progressives are understandably in denial about how the Democratic Party functions and how it postures itself for political opportunism, the inefficacy of, quote, pushing Biden to the left, the political and financial elites' unwillingness to reform institutions which exist to consolidate their power, the degree to which private interests dictate policy via direct and indirect campaign funding, career opportunities, and mutual agreements, the fallacies of procedural norms, quote, fairness, impartiality, and the notion that, on their own merits, science and objective truth juxtapose doctrine and propaganda, and I mean that in the context of the party. The 2 major parties have made a practice of dancing around in a circle, always facing one another, absorbing some share of the populace by shifting slightly on social issues, but never straying away from the foundation of neoliberal capitalism. The Democratic Party currently appears to have an edge because it has rebranded itself as the party most sympathetic to women and minorities. It has achieved this primarily through empowering a select group of black, brown, and female spokespeople to espouse the ideology at the core of the DNC. In some cases, these spokespeople can get away with pushing significantly more conservative ideology because pundits and party leaders encourage the populace to project more progressive values onto these select spokespeople because of the way they look or speak. To put it bluntly, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not our allies. Yes, there are significant differences in messaging between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Many Americans are afraid. Black and brown communities, LGBTQ+ communities, Muslims, immigrants, asylum seekers, even liberal homeowners are afraid of what 4 more years under Donald Trump might bring. Women are afraid of losing reproductive rights. Children are afraid of having to inherit an ever-warming climate of toxic greenhouse gases. The elderly are afraid of falling ill and being unable to afford health care. Indigenous communities are afraid of having more of their land purchased, pillaged, polluted, and sold off for redevelopment. These are all very legitimate reasons to get engaged in politics. I share much of that fear. I am nonetheless more than skeptical that a Joe Biden administration would be able to adequately address any of these issues or help carve out a path to a more equitable future. Here are some unsettling figures pertaining to the Joe Biden 2019 through 2020 campaign donations, according to the OpenSecrets.org ledger. Small donors, meaning individual donations under $200, $1,500 make up less than 40% of his campaign funding. So in the health sector, we have Trump at $19.8 million versus Biden with $46.9 million. By industry, for some examples, pharma manufacturing, Trump at $647,000, Biden at $2.5 million. Pharmaceuticals and products, Trump $1.6 million, Biden $6.3 million. HMOs, Trump $1.5 million, Biden $4.6 million. Healthcare facilities, Trump $4.3 million, Biden $12.6 million. The energy sector is split about evenly, with Trump at $5.2 and Biden at $5.3 million. Defense sector, Trump $1.7 million, Biden $2.4 million, with Raytheon vastly outlobbying the rest of the defense electronics industry. Oh, and I should add, as for the healthcare facilities, Partners Healthcare contributed even more than the American Hospital Association.
That's impressive, but that's impressive.
No, unfortunately not. This next one is a fucking doozy.
How much did Partners drop in?
I don't remember, but you can look it up on Open Secrets.
By the way, real quick, Partners has changed their name to Mass General Brigham, which is an awful name. So
yeah, that's not as catchy. The communications and electronics sector, Trump $7.6 million, Biden $48.7 million. The internet and telecom industries gave to Democrats pretty much across the board, which we were talking about conspiracy theories with Microsoft and shit. I think that could explain why Trump is going after big tech so much. Interestingly, with the finance, insurance, real estate sector, Trump $30 million, Biden $54 million. It's a little embarrassing for Trump being the self-proclaimed real estate guy. I don't know. To be fair, this may be a sort of betting situation in which corporations are simply trying to curry favor with whomever will be in power, though it is standard practice for monopolies like Alphabet to donate generous sums to incumbents on both sides of the proverbial aisle. Now, here's a refresher on some of the legislation Congressman Joe Biden introduced, and this was from the 70s through the aughts. A bill to provide for the implementation of treaties for the transfer of offenders to or from foreign countries, 1977. The Sentencing Act of 1987. A bill to amend Title 31 of the United States Code to increase settlement authority and expand coverage relating to claims for damages resulting from law enforcement activities, and that includes like the FBI and shit. And that was in 1989. The Flag Protection Act of 1989. Joint resolutions to designate 1 week in December as National Cities Fight Back Against Drugs Week, commemorate the 50th anniversary of the National Sheriff's Association, and designate October 1990 as Crime Prevention Month. The Crime Control Act of 1990, a bill to provide for the extension of certain authority for the Marshal of the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court Police in 1993, a bill to provide that the Executive Director of the Inter-American Development Bank or the alternate Executive Director of the Inter-American Development Bank may serve on the Board of Directors of the Inter-American Foundation in 2007. And that to me is probably the most fucking sketchy of all. The Law Enforcement Congressional Badge of Bravery Act in 2008. Two separate versions of the Criminal History Background Checks Pilot Extension Act of 2008. And lastly, the Libyan Claims Resolution Act of 2008, which basically paid out settlements to Americans who wanted compensation for alleged acts of terrorism in Libya or coming from, Libyan associates.
I was just looking up this Flag Protection Act. You can't burn the flag burning. The Simpsons were actually making fun of in the Schoolhouse Rock's mockery video.
Yes. I could sing that whole song. I'm not going to do it unless you guys really wanted to. It's fucking great.
There was a time I could too.
Oh boy.
Do it.
Hopping in with a bit of an update. No One 2 is currently leading 53.5 to 46.5 with 8.5% in. And Trump's lead in Florida has expanded to 51.2 to 47.9. And Biden's leads in Texas, Ohio, and North Carolina are beginning to shrink. Biden's leading 50.2 to 48.5 in Texas right now. He has a lead of 51.4 to 47.4 in Ohio. That's been shrinking. He was at like 56% about an hour ago in Ohio, and he's now down to 51. In North Carolina, he leads 50.8 to 48.1. And Trump appears to be running away with it in Georgia. He's at like 56% of the vote now. He's got like a 300,000 vote lead in Georgia.
Thank you for that update, Joe.
No problem.
That is one big pile of shit.
In some weird ways, I'd rather have Trump win the presidency and ranked choice voting succeed in Massachusetts and Alaska than like the other way around, just because ranked choice voting is so critically important to actually getting some like an independent workers' party.
Yeah, low-key same.
Expand on this preference to Trump in exchange for ranked choice voting.
Sure. So my prediction, at least if Joe Biden wins, is that what's going to happen is you're going to have a couple years of very hardcore austerity measures. And generally speaking, like the way the U.S. has kind of been able to keep the stock market and everything from just essentially blowing up is doing some very unsustainable short-term measures, such as quantitative easing out the ass in order to keep general lid on things. I think at the rate things are going, we're probably going to see, if Joe Biden wins, you're probably going to see, like I said, hardcore austerity, some kind of heavy crackdown on Antifa on the left, and then him presiding over presidency in an absolute gutter Great Depression to your economy until we get a right-wing populist versus Kamala Harris in 2024. With ranked choice voting, at least, if that were to succeed in Massachusetts and Alaska, then running third parties at the state level becomes viable, and you have the option for strong local and state level third parties to develop in a way that could mean that we could actually get some socialist workers' parties taking off. Under the current system of first past the post, where, you really only have two options, Democrat or Republican, there's no way we're getting in there. I mean, I think we lose either way with Trump or Biden, but just getting ranked choice voting it's one of the things that's necessary to having an electorally competitive third party, just because our system is so utterly rigged against that. Like, the ballot restrictions the United States have are comparable to one-party states in other countries. And in some ways, I would think we might be better off, at least. I mean, obviously, I don't have the power to decide this. Getting those ranked choice voting so we can start building the independent workers' party at the local and state level versus, the presidential level, just having a Democrat in charge who is liable to do many terrible things that we're not going to want, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense. Jesse, do you want to read the rest of your thing?
Shit. Here we go again.
One last thing about the austerity, and then I'll let Jesse get to this thing. Last week, or it was 2 weeks ago, Ted Kaufman, who was Biden's longtime chief of staff and currently the head of the transition team for the Biden campaign, he told the Wall Street Journal last week, pretty straight up, that they're going to start doing austerity, they're going to run austerity up the ass if Biden ends up winning. So they're already telling us that we're going to just do a redux of 2009, 2010, where we do a stimulus that, according to the then National Economic Council of Advisors, was $1.2 trillion too small, and we're going to go right to austerity after doing a really shitty stimulus and a really bad healthcare plan, and we're going to see that, but coupled with a pandemic. Is my feeling
so
what's
bright.
going to happen. I know, right?
Shades.
Okay, now back to the spiel.
Thank you. I didn't want to cut anybody off. I just kept trying to stutter back into it. I thought everybody was reading the show notes channel, but I guess not.
We love you,
I'm
Jesse.
just staring at results.
I love you guys too.
Results.
And I say guys is a gender neutral thing.
And the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
In one of the most prolific periods of civil disobedience in the history of this nation, during an era of protest against police and the carceral state, the DNC has thrown its support behind a presidential candidate with an extensive history of expanding the prison industrial complex and a vice presidential candidate who made a career out of feeding impoverished people into that complex. I fear that under a Biden presidency, those who suffered under the previous Biden administration will again be ignored by Americans who claim to love and support their fellows. Thus, we will embrace our fellow human beings even as the state refuses to. I fear that under a Biden presidency, the voices of those suffering abroad under the heavy hand of American imperialism will again be silenced. Thus, we will amplify those voices until the whole nation is forced to listen. This temporary strategic alliance between the left and the Democratic Party can be maintained only to the degree that it protects the most vulnerable among us. We must strengthen and grow our coalition until our class solidarity is stronger than the forces of capital, which continuously seek to weigh us down and encourage us to expend our time and energy on petty antagonisms. We must instead foster interdependence through political education, community defense, and mutual aid. We study the struggles and successes of previous revolutions so that we can develop new strategies and implement new tactics. We continue to experiment, learning from praxis to refine our theory, always building upon our prior understanding and experience. We speak of sustainable energy as if to imply that we are the arbiters, but what we need is for the planet to sustain us. If we do not continue this process of experimentation, and we cannot orient our means and methods of production to meet human need, we will not survive. Regardless of who wins this election, I cannot but foresee the necessity to coordinate and strengthen our fight. We must continue to educate, to defend, to aid, and to recruit. We must also take time to rest and be willing to process our pain together. We build bonds this way. We build healthy, loving relationships this way. We will practice channeling anger away from ourselves and our peers. We will harness that energy and wield it against the capitalist class. We may find that there is fear hiding underneath that anger and that we are unable to confront that fear on our own. But history teaches us that we can provide much more for ourselves and for our fellows if we function as a collective. We will reestablish our presence in the streets and push back against the violent forces of capital, no matter who is at the helm of the American imperial machine. For us to survive, neoliberal capitalism must die. We are the reapers. Mic drop.
Hell yeah.
I love the Republic.
I was thinking about this at work, and it like occurred to me, like, in the sense that, like, maybe, like, climate change is, like, the planet's immune system kicking in, because, like, humanity is killing the planet. And so, like, the Earth is, like, you know, trying to kill us before we can kill it. Like,
ecofascism. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I had a cough.
Is that an eco-fascist perspective?
no, what I'm saying is that, like, in order to get the planet to stop trying to kill us, we need to abandon capitalism and pursue socialism. We need to approach, like, people before profits in terms of our environmental policies.
No, I think it's tricky. Like, basically, whenever there's a big global crisis, almost every extremist ideology tries to see a way where it proves that only their particular brand is the thing that can solve the problem and therefore is going to go mainstream. Like, if you look at, you know, the actual fascists and far-right types, they're convinced that climate change is going to teach countries basically to really lock down their borders, like machine gun refugees, you know, take on very hardcore nationalist and just extremely authoritarian measures. Like, socialists seem to think that climate change is going to force, like, an end of capitalism, that kind of thing. It seems like everybody whose ideology on the out kind of thinks that it's going to be the silver bullet that makes their ideology win. And I just don't know if it'll be that simple, to be honest. Like, we're not in a good position to take power at this point, to put it lightly.
I mean, if I've learned anything about the right wing, it's that, like, it doesn't fucking matter what the morally superior stance is. Like, we're gonna get fucking shit on no matter what, and it doesn't matter if it.
We can't Sorkin our way out of this.
I don't think we can Sorkin our way out of it, bro.
We gotta Sorkin harder.
I have so many long-winded dialogue exchanges planned, but fine, whatever.
On the subject of Jesse's article, though, I do think an interesting question might be just anticipating how different election outcomes might affect the socialist movement. Just because, you know, to an extent, the explosion of the DSA and its huge growth in numbers has been, in a lot of ways, an anti-Trump phenomena. And
absolutely, yes.
Not so much a pro-Bernie thing. So it's curious. And also just based on a lot of drama that's happened internally in the organization. Like, as you recall, at the DSA National Convention, the last one we voted, you know, Bernie or bust, not nominating any other Democrats. But there was very strong movement by a lot of prominent DSA members, mostly associated with Socialist Majority, to get DSA to still go out and campaign for Biden. And I think it's going to be very hard, if Biden wins, for DSA to disentangle itself from the association with the Democrats and its general, you know, I mean, for better or for worse, if the average American looks at us, they're seeing us in the same camp as, like, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, etc. And if Biden wins, I think it's going to be hard for the DSA to shift from this kind of popular frontist, support Biden against Trump, defend democracy, you know, acting like this is a Weimar Germany thing, into an oppositional role. And it's quite possible that we see a pretty big collapse in numbers just with Trump out of the way. I don't know what you guys think.
That was exactly my thought.
Yeah, I've been thinking that too. Especially, like, with a discourse, like, on, like, Twitter, like, it feels like a lot of people are just, they're ready to get over Trump and then, like, fuck off from politics for a couple years.
Brunch.
Yeah, brunch. They're ready for brunch.
Which is actually, me and Jesse had this conversation maybe 6 months ago, and we were both like, well, I think it would be good as a whole for the country in the long term if Trump were to win, because the libs would, like, stay invested for another 4 years, because, like, if the Democrat wins, well, they're off back to brunch.
We saw under the Obama administration, there was no coverage of the shit that they're covering under the Trump administration.
Yes.
most of the shit that they cover was inherited directly from the previous administration.
Kids in cages.
Like, Trump likes to talk about dismantling all the Obama-era shit, but, like, all of the nationalist and violent and, like, capitalist benefiting shit, like, he's all for that. He just wants to do away with the liberal rhetoric, if anything.
Right on. Like, in concrete terms, Trump rules somewhere between George W. Bush Jr. and Barack Obama. And, you know, both of those were obviously very highly destructive individuals to a lot of people in this world, particularly in
domestic policy.
Wait, George W. Bush Jr. or
Junior?
Are we talking like between the two of them on like domestic or foreign policy?
Everything, to be honest. Like, you know, Trump campaigns himself as like pro-gay rights. He's in many ways less imperialist, though it's kind of, I think it's more out of laziness and contrarianism.
Yeah, it's incompetence. Like, that's what scares me the most about the potential Biden administration is that, like, and again, I've said this 100,000 fucking times, like, that
There's
Venezuela...
an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once.
That Venezuela coup would have succeeded under Biden. Like,
absolutely.
Like,
Trump just fucked it up because he's like he's not invested in anything that doesn't directly benefit him. You know what I mean?
He lost interest in the Venezuela thing, and I think like his more dovish like foreign policy is really because he has this understanding that like the American public mercifully does not really have the stomach for like foreign intervention that it used to, and so like going into another war is probably bad for him politically. So that's why we don't go into another war. But like the Biden administration, Joe Biden is like he is earnestly a bloodthirsty person when it comes to foreign policy. So it's just going to be like a rehash of the Bush administration.
It is pretty horrifying that you realize that Biden attacks Trump from the right on foreign policy.
Yes, on China especially. Holy shit.
Yep.
Watching that last debate, I'm sure I was pretty hammered, but I was still like horrified at like, why is he coming at Trump from the right on foreign policy? Why is he coming from the right on mass incarceration?
Yeah, they talked about that on Chapo, and Will was like, my dad just fucking died. Like, if you thought I didn't give a shit about this election before, like, you can guess how I feel now. Because, I mean, it's true. That second debate was who has, like, a bigger nuclear cock. Like, there's no humanitarian aspect of foreign policy at all. Except for maybe, you know, the sort of...
foreign policy that was like, who can hate on China more?
Who's best at sucking the missile cock?
It's that plus who's nicer to Israel. Like, which is... Yeah. It's just dripping with fucking, like, it's just so... I hate it. I just hate it. Like... There's some shit that really gets under my skin more than other shit, and like...
Real shit is like, why? Why are we doing this? Why are we still doing this?
Like, the rainbow capitalism shit gets under my skin, but like, the APAC shit really gets under my fucking skin.
Yeah, the APAC stuff is really fucked up.
I mean, again, look at Jeremy Corbyn. Like, they even tried doing a bit of an anti-Semitism smear campaign stuff against Bernie and a few of his staffers in 2020. I think...
Also, like the amount of money they dumped into trying to get rid of Ilhan Omar during her primary.
Right. Like, the Democratic Party is supposed to be the tolerant party. And, like, they're clearly xenophobic as well. It's fucking... It's in the open. It's just, like, good Americans side with Israel, apparently, according to the liberal philosophy.
Good Americans don't see Palestinians as humans.
Right on. It's
pretty much.
Sadly, our ranked choice voting is still losing by an even greater margin than the last time I talked about it.
I had the faith that they would at least win, but then we would cripple it. Like,
ranked choice vote, no one two is currently leading 54.8 to 45.2 with 15.5% of the vote in. Also,
at least it's only 15.5.
Joe Biden has also lost his lead in Texas. He's now trailing 49.4 to 49.3, and he's trailing in Florida 51.3 to 47.8.
If it was Bernie, you know he would have won Texas. Like,
oh hell yes! I mean, they had to like drag out Beto O'Rourke the night before Super Tuesday to like come out and endorse Biden in like Texas at the last possible second.
That shit was all Obama. Like,
I know.
I'm gonna have to introduce a moratorium to the Bernie would have won.
Bernie would have won. Bernie would have won. Bernie would.
Jesse's like preemptively doing this because it's
I will say it. No.
We can go down the like, oh, it would have been so great path until we are literally
It would have
like,
been. It would have been.
Okay, I think that if we should institute something like if you forget and say that Bernie would have won or anything in that related area, you have to like, I don't know, you have to drink or help me out here. Let's come up with something.
You gotta sing a song.
Okay.
It sounds fun to me.
If I have to drink more, I'm going to die of alcohol poisoning.
You know, I actually...
Let's not do it right now.
I discovered watermelon vodka lemonades. They're too good.
Yeah, the last debate was so hard to watch, I got like blackout drunk.
all right, just for our listeners, Kit was having difficulty with the internet, unfortunately, but we love him. We love him, folks.
We love Kit folks. Yeah, I'm gonna go pour myself another. We are woefully down to the bottom
We
of.
really need to like make a sound drop of like Matt Crispin doing his like Trump impersonation of that.
Trump impersonation is so...
Well, his is. That's what I'm basing mine on. Yeah.
I know. When I say yours is good, it's like you do the impersonation that he's trying to do, but you do it better than he does.
Yeah.
True.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, Scott.
Pretty much everybody's Trump impersonation is like the impersonation of somebody else who does a worse Trump impersonation.
Yeah.
I got to say, if he loses, I'm going to miss just having such a weird natural comedian in the White House.
Yes, like the other fucking, like seriously.
Bye. Go home to mommy. Go home to mommy.
Exactly.
The fact that Joe Biden and Trump are both, I don't want to say they're identical on policy, but like there are equally
They are for the most
reprehensible aspects of their policy. And like Trump is just objectively funnier than Biden.
Yeah.
Biden isn't funny at all, though.
You see how that
just, like,
motherfucker
weird-
dances? It's very funny.
Wait, who dances?
Trump, the way he dances, he just like shuffles his arms and like moves his head very slightly. This is an entire. Like, they just put out a video. It's him dancing to YMCA, and it's the funniest thing. It's the funniest
I'm gonna
thing.
look this up.
We love it. He can barely dance, folks. He just shuffles.
Oh god.
Science doesn't know how he's an American original.
Doesn't understand it.
Talking about how he was going to get some of the men in the fucking crowd in Florida. Oh my god, dude.
Dude, I'm so sad that when he got sworn in, he didn't say something like, Barack Obama, I have no choice but to tell you, you're fired.
Yeah, he could.
I posted a link to the YMCA video.
You know what's really depressing to me? Is that question one, yes on one is leading with 74% of the vote.
That's good.
No on two is leading with 54.8% of the vote.
I started seeing right to repair ads.
Hey, at least cars are going to be blowing up more.
I started seing the rollout for
Back to 2 episodes ago.
Like one of my fucking clients posted it months ago, and I didn't even really see a ranked choice voting campaign. Like no money went into it. You know what I mean? There wasn't really anything.
Yeah, I've just seen a lot of signs. I've
been like blasted with no on one for like the past 2 months. Like every time I go to a gas station, I have to hear that ad at least.
Yeah, there was
3
one in a
times.
podcast I listened to last night. There was one in a podcast from the BBC last night. There was a no on one.
Christ, man.
I know exactly. It's like, wow, that's very specific targeting advertising there.
Yeah, yes on, or the ballot question one campaign has turned out to be the most expensive ballot question in Massachusetts history in terms of fundraising. With question two, though, I think we might be in deep shit because on one hand, the DSA did jack shit for question two, to be honest, even though that's probably the most important ballot question like ever in terms of us actually being able to break with the Democrats, run our own candidates, whatever. But also Charlie Baker telling people to vote no on two. Like there are an infuriating number of massholes that basically take whatever Charlie Baker says as gospel.
Yeah.
And I'm worried about that.
Oh shit!
My dad.
I gotta leave Charlie Baker a voicemail.
My dad.
Another one?
It's time for leaving Charlie
I'm gonna start
Baker.
doing it every week. What should I? What am I gonna say this week?
Tell him that he's a stupid moron with an ugly face and a big
He's got
butt.
a big butt and his butt smells.
And he likes to kiss his own butt.
All
But
right,
Anaconda don't want none.
Somebody write that in the chat so that I can get it correct.
Yeah, I will.
Also, that he doesn't have any sense of time because 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. doesn't make any practical sense. Get a watch.
10 p.m. to 5 p.m. When was that enforced?
No, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. It's effective Friday.
That is such bullshit, man. God.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, the messaging around it is really translucent. It's like, this is for coronavirus. Doesn't have anything to do with political unrest. Nope, not at all.
The political unrest angle, too, doesn't make much sense just because it's not like Trump is going to steal the election in Massachusetts, But it is funny because I was at a bookstore earlier today and they had a huge display case selling copies of In Defense of Looting, but the store was boarding up the windows.
Right? Oh, here we go.
Charlie Baker, you are a stupid moron with an ugly face and a big butt, and your butt smells, and you like to kiss your own butt.
Bravo.
We love it.
Sorry, what were you saying, Trent?
Hey, if you want to believe in aliens, I'm cool with that. I still love you. I don't care.
And Trump has taken the lead in Ohio. He now has a half-point lead.
Yeah, about that. No, Trent was right. There's a bunch of stores that have boarded up because they're afraid of what will happen.
Yeah, it's
That's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, honestly, because I wasn't going to protest, and then when I seen they were boarding all the shit up, I was like, ooh, it's going to go down.
It's like, now I want to do it.
Yep.
I'm not going to protest, but I'm going to watch the fireworks from a distance, just like I did with the last round of protests.
I missed out, because I had to work a lot that week, so I really kind of want to actually come down tomorrow.
Dude, if you've never been tear gassed before, it's a blast.
Well,
when were you tear gassed?
I have almost been tear gassed before.
Well, you can do the real thing this time, bro. Come on.
Yeah, when did it happen to you, Jesse?
Well, it didn't really. On that Sunday, I think it was May 31st. It was impossible. Yeah, it was impossible to walk around town without having your fucking eyes burn, all around the common. It took so long to figure out how to get through there.
I remember you, live texting me and Scott, while I was commuting home from work that night, what was going on.
That was glorious, dude. I'm sorry. That was the most liberating, just walking down the street and witnessing just the complete disregard for, property rights. It filled the little tank in my heart with glee.
I want to draw a picture of the little tank in your heart, or you should draw one. I'm imagining it as like different cars, the cars that have the eyeballs. It's a little tank.
Biden has lost his lead in Ohio. Trump now leads 49.7 to 49. And I said about an hour and a half ago that Ohio is going to start off blue and then shift to red eventually. As
MAGA going to get it. Trump's going to get that victory.
Well, I thought Ohio was always going to go red. It's become a solidly red state.
Trump going to give it to you. He going to give it to you. Trump going to give it to you.
DMX.
In North Carolina, Biden's only leading 49.7 to 49.2. Trump's still leading in Florida, 51.3 to 47.8. He's leading in Georgia, 56.5 to 42.3. He's leading in Texas, 49.7 to 49 for Biden. Right now, Biden's kind of running away with Minnesota, but that's because the rural part of the state hasn't really come in yet. It's just Minneapolis. And Trump is currently leading in both Michigan and Wisconsin, but that's because the major cities in Michigan haven't come in with anything yet. Same thing with Wisconsin.
Dude, can you believe that Lil Pump, Lil Wayne, and Kanye West are all backing Trump?
Yes.
Kanye.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all fucking loaded.
Also, Kanye's just
it's class solidarity.
You're right.
Yep. It's his class interest, so why are we surprised by that? Why is anybody surprised?
Even if Trump lies out of his ass about how much money he has, his lower bound for wealth is still higher than Biden's upper bound.
Lil Wayne has been a Republican for a while, a known Republican, so that's not surprising either. So
really,
yeah, for he was saved by a cop many years ago, and he kind of got his ideology from that cop.
He shot himself.
I didn't know that was the story, but he got an ideology from the cop who saved him, and it's right-leaning. Is anyone surprised?
I'm sorry, did you say he shot or he shit himself?
He probably shit himself, but I know he shot himself.
Jesus.
CBS has called the Senate race for the Democrat.
Damn. Sorry, you said the Senate or the Senate race?
The Senate race. So we have Mr. Fracking Fluid, John Hickenlooper, is now officially going to be a senator. Kill me now.
See you, Will. Will's going out.
We knew going into this that socialists were going to lose hard tonight no matter what happened.
In North Carolina, Cal Cunningham is leading Tom Tillis, the Republican incumbent, 48.5% to 47.4%. A Libertarian has sucked up 3% of the vote, which is probably hurting the Republican incumbent.
That Q candidate already won.
Dude, isn't it amazing that QAnon
which Q candidate? Because there are multiple Q candidates.
The one that was already announced, Joe. I don't remember. I've had a few beers.
Hold on. There is one race where I don't want to say socialists will win, but Mike Siegel is. I think he's like hiding his power level a little bit, given that his dad was.
His race hasn't been called yet.
God damn it,
Joe. That wasn't the point.
Go
on.
I don't remember what I was going to say. Interestingly enough, I learned about his race through like a super reactionary right wing fucking outlet. But yeah, like he could actually win. He is
trailing only by 2 points.
He's at least a democratic socialist.
He is actually, with 82% of the estimated vote reported, he's only trailing by 2 points, which is actually an improvement over his performance last cycle when he lost by 4. So he's already doing better than he did last cycle.
Where is he?
He is in the Texas 10th.
Oh, in Texas. So are we
Texas
thinking...
is kind of a grab bag, dude.
Yeah.
There's another interesting district, like with a person who has like a democratic socialist platform is the general election candidate that beat Heidi Sloan in the primary in the Texas 25th. Her platform, I went through all of like trying to come up with a list of left-wing candidates talked about on the Patreon episode we're going to do on Thursday. And Julie Oliver, she is just as good as Heidi Sloan was on the issues. Like she is extremely in favor of Medicare for all, explicitly, and makes the point of like being like, this is single-payer healthcare. This isn't like the Pete Buttigieg like Medicare for all who want it bullshit. Very much in favor of the Green New Deal. Very like detailed on like what she wants to do about healthcare, and which like she has like a 10-point like policy plan of like the 10 policies she wants to do on healthcare, and only the first one is Medicare for all, and then she goes into further detail. And I'm kind of hoping she wins that race.
I hope she does too. She had a lot of really crazy stuff happen between her campaign and like those crazy Maoist groups, like the Austin Red Guards. They attacked her events a few times. I hope she wins.
The who Red Guards? Oh, Austin. I think you said Alston.
Yeah, Austin Red Guards. Thank fucking God they don't exist in Austin. But I swear, if those guys aren't FBI agents, they're doing the same job as them.
Julie Oliver is actually she's even closer than Mike Siegel is right now. She's only trailing 1.1 percentage points. She's got 48.6% of the vote right now, so she's incredibly close. This is a district that went for the Republican incumbent by at least 5 or 6 points last cycle, and she's only down 1 point.
Can I bring back a Buttigieg favorite of mine?
Sure.
The shape of our democracy is the issue that affects every other issue.
Oh, fuck. I realized we had a moratorium on Candace Owens, but I guess it was just quoting her, so...
I don't care anymore. It's a who gives a shit fest tonight. I don't care. Whatever. I just don't like her.
I was at a local bookstore yesterday, and I saw Pete Buttigieg's book, and I just couldn't stop laughing.
I was at a hipster coffee shop.
Oh, related to that. Well, I guess it isn't related to that, but it's kind of funny to think that QAnon has more grassroots working class participation and more electoral success than DSA this year, when you think about it. Like, good God.
Yeah, I'm not going to say what I'm feeling about that.
We got a DSA pill, people.
What does that mean?
I have no idea.
It means we gotta lie about how cool we are.
Yeah, or we have to actually like have an established ideology that represents. I realize I'm on rocky ground, but you know, certain things DSA needs to devote itself to more, like a more concrete, more hardline ideology, more required political education, things like that.
Have you read any Mike McNair from the Communist Party of Great Britain?
I have. This is actually the first time I've heard the name. I admit. You are much more informed than I am. I will admit this.
It's not that I'm more informed as much as I attend a million reading groups for some reason or other, but I'm probably going to do a reading group on his book, Revolutionary Strategy, soon. But essentially, if you look at the DSA, honestly, it has a lot of problems to say the least, but one of them is that it lacks a political platform in the sense of any kind of shared common principles or...
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. I don't mean ideology, yeah.
And yeah, in the lack of a platform and the lack of, like, that's a pretty core part of any political party party, and it's been a core part of historic political parties like the SPD in Germany, just having a shared set of principles of like, we want to accomplish X. These are our minimum goals. These are our maximum goals. This is our program. I think in the absence of that, you kind of have a problem.
Like plan to get to X.
Right. Because DSA, frankly, like we have a lot of very passionate canvassers. That's an important asset. And in the absence of any kind of litmus test for membership or endorsement, that's going to kind of pull us towards being courted as an asset for candidates that aren't even remotely socialist because we have a powerful canvassing wing. And I think it would be important, at least as part of a transition from DSA in its current state, which is such a big tent that it's really only good for flapping in the wind, to be honest, to being a more disciplined organizational along the SPD or KPD would be the establishment of a political program and at least some kind of litmus test or common agreement among candidates and members that these are the goals we are working towards. This is how we want to accomplish it. That kind of thing, if that makes sense. Like Ben Shapiro is a member of the DSA. I don't know if y'all know that or not.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I am not. He paid the $5. He's in. There's no vetting. There's no standards. Like, you can join and have voting rights and everything like nothing. And that, I think, is that's a really alarming thing about our organization.
Question. Why in the fuck would he go to the effort of bothering to pay the $5?
Dude.
To own the libs, dude!
It's great content for a show, bro.
If I recall, he was literally just making a photograph showing his membership card saying that Ben Shapiro was a socialist organizer.
Yeah, he's just trying to piss you off.
Yeah,
exactly. And if you have no vetting, if you have no membership standards, that can happen. I mean, like if I wanted to join the Freemasons or the Shriners or the Knights of Columbus, I would have to pass some kind of vetting. DSA, you pay $5, you're in. It's a problem.
Yeah, right now it's working more or less, but like I think we do definitely have the strategy of like waiting for somebody to do something bad before we deal with them.
I feel like I have to make this distinction though, because like in this chapter, like the Boston chapter is a little bit different. Well, it's a lot different than national. Like there's definitely more communists in this chapter, but I think there's way too much pushback. There's way too much pushback on like endorsing only socialist candidates and like not having cops in the fucking chapter. Like
a fucking men.
I voted in favor of all of the good proposals, and so did the rest of the chapter, but not enough to get, what did we need, 2/3 majority for the...
7%.
Wonderful.
And only 61% voted in favor of, like, only endorsing socialists. So, Trent, you just put a photo of the New York Times needle. Which
needle's back.
Which state is this in reference to?
It's going to haunt me in my dreams.
Let's talk about that part. So, the first one is Florida, the second is Georgia, the third is North Carolina. Let me just go ahead and screenshot that with the names in. But yeah, I feel like DSA's got a real problem in that. So I think we got a decent portion of members, particularly concentrated in social sorority and caucuses like that see socialism as essentially a continuum of the progressive movement.
Yeah.
That there isn't really like a friend-enemy distinction to like borrow from Carl Schmitt in terms of like, at the end of the day, in my humble opinion, like socialism/communism and progressivism are fundamentally incompatible. We are just as much enemies of theirs as we are enemies of the Republicans. Like, we want very conflicting things.
Right, which is why I really wanted to push back when you said SPD, because pretty sure they, like, killed communists.
I mean, I very much specified pre-World War I SPD because, you know, in World War I, you ended up having a lot of these social democratic parties vote for war credits. But prior to that, the SPD, like, did not vote for a single, like, capitalist thing in the, like, legislature. They were very much an independent workers' party. It's just this question of nationalism that smashed them. To say what I mean by imitating the SPD, what I mean specifically is going for the model of a mass workers' party like they did. I just think that in the current DSA and the rest of the socialist American movement, we just have very little knowledge of historical consciousness. And on top of that, there's like this idea that because obviously the Soviet Union failed, it didn't work out like we wanted, the CPUSA was essentially an instrument of Moscow. You know, it ended up flipping like crazy on Stalinist stuff. I think there's been a rejection of what are universally successful organizing techniques and things that are effective at getting things done because these Moscow Soviet Union aligned parties did them. And granted, they were not acting with autonomy. They were not acting as if they wanted to establish independent socialist movements in these countries, but they were very successful organizing techniques. And I think that as the United States socialist movement has embraced a lot of elements of anarchism and elements of basically they're rejecting hierarchies, they're rejecting ideas of clear chain of command, rejecting certain organizing techniques that are highly effective because they're associated with the groups. But these groups didn't fail because they used those tactics. They failed because they didn't exercise political autonomy. They basically just did whatever Moscow said, and whatever Moscow said was often at odds with, political power in the United States. So, for example, not to ramble too much, Earl Browder, the leader of the Communist Party USA, famously said that if the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany entered into a pact, he would eat his own hat. Like 3 days later, Molotov-Ribbentrop happens. And all of a sudden, the CPUSA ends up going to all their members and telling them, oh yeah, we've totally flipped on the position towards Nazi Germany and fascism. You have to go along with this or you're out. And obviously that was very damaging movements, that kind of thing. But the structure of the CPUSA in terms of its membership structure, its shared principles, it had effective organizing techniques. And I think you can reject the excesses of Stalinism and the frankly, effectiveness of anarchism while still kind of learning valuable lessons from the SPD and the CPUSA and these other organizations. No offense if there's any anarchists in the house, but I just have fundamental disagreements with, effectiveness of spontaneousness and non-hierarchical forms of leadership.
Did he actually eat his own hat?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, if he didn't eat his hat, he was a fucking pussy.
No, he didn't. But like the next day,
that motherfucker!
I know.
That was a straight up bitch.
Really, I think that the Second International was like the best chance we had at establishing global communism and all that. But Third International, you can kind of see like the way they squandered what was massive, massive potential. Like you had the Great Depression, you had a lot of agitation against segregation. I mean, frankly, the end of World War I was a strong, strong moment, but the second best runner-up had to have been the Great Depression, and we totally blew it. But
we did, but like I can't imagine what it must have been like trying to keep tabs on fucking what the rest of the world is doing, like as a resident of America or any other country for that matter, like in the 30s. You know what I mean? Like it's not like we have the internet now, so I just feel like it's very hard to like harshly judge the Comintern in how they coordinated when like the whole world was still very fractured. The dynamics were changing. Everything was in flux all the time. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, largely.
That's true, but I think there's a part of the issue with Stalinism and generally the idea of socialism in one country is that it treats socialism and capitalism like they're sets of economic policies. Like somehow you can borrow socialist economic policies here, capitalist economic policies here. But really, these are completely different epochs. Like you have feudalism, you have capitalism, you have socialism. It's an entirely different worldview.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
You got to tell Richard Wolff about this whole separate thing because he seems to be right smack dab in the middle. I don't know.
Socialism is when the government does stuff.
I'm just kidding. Richard Wolff is smart.
Worldview. I mean, an analogy I like to use is imagine if you took a modern secular liberal democracy and tried to start it out of a single medieval village in, medieval England or something. It would utterly fail. Like they have a completely different concept of everything, to be honest. There's no concept of humanity as a universal category. They have a very different conception of property rights, a very different conception of commerce.
Just like money in general, the value form.
Exactly. Your attempt would be teamed up against by other feudal entities, and you would essentially end up having to partake very brutal authoritarian measures in order to enforce your system. I think in a similar way, 20th century socialism in the USSR PRC sense was very similar to that in many ways, and that we didn't have the institutions available or the development available. Like there were a lot of failed peasant rebellions and failed attempts at overthrowing the hegemony of the Catholic Church before we ended up with secular liberal democracy. And in a similar sense, I think we're going to see very many failed attempts at establishing socialism before we actually get it. If that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. What I always try and get across with like the statement that I prepared for this episode is like, we're not going to achieve a fucking proletarian dictatorship in like an election cycle. You know what I mean? Most of us are probably going to be dead by the time we see anything like the transformation from neoliberalism into like socialism, let alone the next phase of development.
That's true for sure. And, we really need to kind of shift towards that kind of long-term thinking. Like right now, I get the impression with a lot of people from DSA and the like, they're kind of thinking in terms of the next election cycle, the next protest. And we've very much fallen into the trap of a lot of sects on the left in kind of chasing after the latest, the trendy protest, the new candidate, kind of pretending the DSA is all about that and attempting to just kind of reproduce ourselves almost like the Trotskyists who chase after protests selling newspapers, I guess would be a way to put it. I think it would be very important if we could just kind of examine the question of, let's just say hypothetically, we knew there wasn't going to be an opportunity for us to establish socialism for like 40, 50 years. What would we do differently than we do now? But the unfortunate assumption is that many of the left seem to permanently operate in the idea that this is 1917 or it's just around the corner.
Yeah.
And the conditions will happen any minute. But what if we're actually in a decades-long slog? That raises completely different questions and ideas.
So, Lindsey Graham, his re-election has been called, so that's kind of a blow to Democratic chances of taking the Senate back. Kansas was just called for Trump a couple minutes ago. Trump has actually taken the lead in Pennsylvania now. He now leads 49.3 to 47.6 for Biden. Biden's lead has been basically reduced to nothing in North Carolina. They're now tied at 49.4% with an estimated 87% of the votes counted. But on the bright side, with an estimated 2/3 of the vote counted, wow, Arizona counted quickly. Biden's actually up in Arizona by about 10 points with an estimated 2/3 vote counted.
Do you think that's because there's like so many old people in that like retire to Arizona?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, honestly. I mean, I think the reason why Biden's probably going to win is ultimately win Arizona is because of all the old people. Also, we have about 54 minutes until California closes.
See, we sometimes like old people. We love them.
Is Arizona normally a red state or a blue state?
Yes. Arizona actually, the last Democrat to win Arizona was Bill Clinton in 1996, but that was because Ross Perot
Bill Clinton.
double digits.
That was me. I was the guy.
But before that, prior to Bill Clinton, the last time a Democrat won Arizona was Lyndon Johnson in 1964.
I fucked the vote out of that state.
I fucked that state with my huge hog.
Pigs.
I'd fuck a literal sheep.
North Carolina's just gone red.
I mean, it sounds to me like Trump's winning.
Talking about animal fucking again on this show.
Here's the thing, though. Like, I think
this is a communist and bestiality podcast.
We've talked about it so many times, dude.
I think that it's like, in Electoral College, Biden's currently winning, but I think it's because, like, a lot of these states, like Pennsylvania, North Carolina, like, they're not counting the absentee ballots yet, so it looks like Trump's leading, because they haven't counted the absentees.
On some level, I think it would be fucking hilarious if, like, MSNBC and Nate Silver and all those douchebags just, like...
Nate Bronze.
Just, like, fucked up again.
But the problem is that, like, let's be real. Nate Silver's a moron who can't read a graph. But they're so terrified of exactly that happening that, like, they have, like, hedged so aggressively. Like, anytime they're asked a question, it's like they're constant, like, one statement is hedged against the next. They're, like, not actually predicting anything. They're just, like, hedging their, like, kind of, like, half-baked thoughts.
Yeah, but shouldn't it have always been that way?
Yeah, but, like, even more so. Also, the Democratic Senate candidate in Texas just lost.
Is that the Democratic Socialist one or a different one?
No, that's MJ Hagar.
Oh.
He's like she's a shit lib.
Who gives a shit about him?
Fuck it. Yeah, I just heard something in Texas, and I made like a white person noise.
What's a white person noise?
Yeah, what?
Like, woo! Hey.
I'll use my credit card. Do you have any non-dairy creamer?
This calls for a celebration.
No, fuck you, brutalist architecture rules. It's like, flip the table over.
Dude, what is it with the cult around brutalist architecture in Boston DSA? Like, it seems like we have the Numtot Brigade, but then we have a certain subset that just loves brutalism. What is with that?
Which group is this?
Let me say.
Which one?
I've liked brutalism as a type of architecture long before I was even political. I just think it's a cool aesthetic. I don't know what's up with everyone else. I just think it looks cool. I don't have my appreciation of brutalism brutalist architecture has no political connection, has none of that. I just like the shape of, I just like how like oppressive it looks. I just like that. And it like, at the same time, I did watch a Cronenberg movie last night that took place in the University of Toronto. And that's all brutalist architecture. And halfway through, I went, I fucking hate the way this fucking place looks. Because there's many, like, Denis Villeneuve has filmed some movies there. And it's just like, it's an ugly, like, you're right. Like, people are right. It is ugly. But at least some brutalist architecture, I appreciate. So
I think it's cool. Brutalist architecture looks like the place that you're going to, like, room 108 to get a hamster jammed up your urethra by the secret police.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
like,
not
if there was
denying
one
that.
thing that the traditionalists and the conservatives are right about, it's architecture, dude. Like, Boston City Hall looks like the kind of place, I mean, the whole thing seems designed for, like, the city mayor to be looting the treasury while the mobs close in. Just give clear lines of fire to machine gun crews. It looks like something out of Mega City 1 and Judge Dredd.
It would be a terribly depressing, like, type of architecture to, like, build a society around. So, like, I don't, like, it's just like, oh, sometimes these buildings look neat if they're, like, colleges or whatever, but, like, you're right.
I actually have, like, emotional, personal emotional attachment to brutalist architecture because my college campus was. I mean, even when I was there, I was always like, oh, it's fucking ugly, and it is.
Where were you?
I went to Ithaca College. I think we've talked about
this.
Yeah.
I've heard Ithaca College, though, has, like, one of the highest, like, student death rates in the country.
Oh, no, you're thinking of, like, Syracuse, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's probably Cornell I'm thinking of, come to think of it.
Oh, Cornell, that's right. No, you're right. Yeah, because people jump off bridges and stuff. Yeah, it happens.
Wait, I missed everything right up until people jump off of bridges.
Are you
Cornell is infamous for a high suicide rate among the student population. Part of it is the course load. Part of it is the fact that the geography of the campus involves a whole lot of cliffs and a whole lot of very dangerous spots.
Gorgeous, yeah. Ithaca is gorgeous.
It's built on an Indian burial ground.
Actually, when I lived in Taos, New Mexico, there's like the local population like of year-round residents is like 5,000 people, and it seemed like a third of them fucking planned on jumping off the Gorge Bridge. It was like a strange trend. It was like that Scottish bridge that all the dogs jump off.
The Suicide Dog Bridge? Oh, hell yeah.
What? No, I have not heard of this.
Wait,
well, we should talk about the Suicide Dog Bridge, but
no.
One thing I like, another reason why I like brutalist architecture.
That would have been a good Halloween episode, but we missed that. We missed our opportunity.
We missed that boat.
Dude, for Halloween, I went to the Bridgewater Triangle, like a bunch of the sites in there. It was so cool. You need to go to that sometime. But there's a bridge, there's a cliff down in the Bridgewater Triangle where people claim that they're like just perfectly normal people are driven to jump off it by some kind of like supernatural force. It's such a creepy area.
It's the call of the void. No, that's actually what it's called.
Bird Box.
The phenomenon is called the call of the void.
But another reason why I like brutalist architecture is I had a friend who went to, I think it's the UMass Amherst campus that has brutalist architecture, and he described it as, I feel like I'm going to school at Starfleet. And I was like, you know what? If he likes it, that's cool.
Yeah, I have no idea what brutalist architecture means.
City Hall, Boston City Hall is the design.
Boston City Hall is like it's like the platonic ideal of brutalist architecture.
I was thinking of something totally different.
If there's lots of concrete and it looks like a place the secret police are going to drag you into, it's brutalist.
My high school had brutalist architecture to it.
There's an interesting actually connection in that a lot of brutalist architecture was built during the 1970s with a very strong eye towards anti-riot features. Like if you look at a lot of brutalist buildings, they have very few windows or accessibility on the first floor. It's primarily like second or third floor up, and the places look like natural fortresses.
So your Judge Dredd comparison was pretty spot on.
Exactly.
So, Trent, you have literally described the inside of the high school I went to.
I mean, high school, so briefly before I was a socialist, I worked at the reentry program at American Prison, and it was utterly shocking just how similar it was to American high schools, like in every way. The school to prison pipeline is a real deal.
Like literally, if you look at the architecture, like have any of you been like to like UMass Boston, like the older part?
Yes.
Of, like,
yeah.
It's
What's it
literally
like?
very, very few windows, heavy steel doors with like a slit for a window, like brick. They're all like painted white, and it's like the pressing place. There's like no windows, and it's basically essentially that, but on a smaller scale.
So I could not have been more off. off in my categorization of what I thought you guys were talking about. I was thinking of constructivist architecture, which is dope.
I'm going to have to look that up. I've never heard of it.
What's constructivist architecture? Though I will say the best architecture style is Art Nouveau. I don't know if y'all seen that, but it's beautiful.
Oh, hell yeah. I have to agree. 100%.
I don't think I've heard of that style.
Think like Paris in the 1890s, kind of.
Ooh, that's
yeah. Rivendell from Lord of the Rings.
Also true. But yeah, just that general show of like extreme craftsmanship and everything.
Constructivist is like almost proto-brutalist, though.
A little bit.
Yeah, but it's much more creative. Like,
it's cooler.
I'll show. I'm gonna put a picture. Nikolai Ledovsky, I guess.
There's the type of buildings that are on like Soviet disco album covers.
Yeah, they're like the Sputnik. They remind me of the Sputnik propaganda like imagery, but fucking they have like a lot of sort of absurd like layering, and rather than like trying to keep it sort of all contained within like one shape, it's like very, in some places, very angular, and like, I don't know, it's almost like a kid played with blocks and like Lincoln Logs and then like just froze it in time and then put windows in it.
I mean, something clearly went wrong around World War I in terms of architecture. Like,
well, I mean, a lot of stuff went wrong around that time in like general.
Okay, true. But you were saying.
I put the an example of one of the designs for like a housing complex in the show notes chat.
I just saw that. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. I love it.
I'll find some other cool examples.
Joe, did you have those updates already?
Which updates?
Oh, I made them a while ago.
Oh wow.
I just got impatient of waiting to interject it.
It's 131 to 98 on the Electric College. Buzz.
Surprisingly, Biden has, with 14% of the estimated vote counted, he actually has a lead in Iowa, but I don't think that's going to hold. He's still leading in Arizona with an estimated 71% of the vote counted. He's up by about 9 points there, so his lead shrunk a little bit, but not by much. He's still trailing, however, in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina.
In other words, the important states.
Yes, the important states.
Oh god, it's going to be so fucking hilarious if the Democrats like fucked Bernie over again and they got fucked in the ass by Trump again.
Yeah, I know. Like, I keep laughing. I've been laughing. Oops.
He laughed so hard he laughed himself straight off the server.
Oh, I thought that was me for a second.
Me too.
No. But I've been laughing about this for months. That like Warren like stabbed Bernie in the back like twice, and like all it's gonna probably get at it is like a left primary challenge in like 4 years.
Oh yeah, fuck Elizabeth Warren.
Be a liar on national TV.
Like the fact that all the other Democrats dropped out, but she stayed in just long enough over Super Tuesday to fuck him out of the vote in multiple states. Like there was clearly a strategy there.
Yeah, exactly. Like she came in like fourth in Nevada,
third in her own
own state.
Third in your own state, ma'am. Come on.
That's why I will to this day call Warren supporters Warren cells. You know, it's just it fits, and they totally screwed over the left.
In the first week we were canvassing, it was me and Spencer. He asked the question, like, what will shake out on the primary? And I said, Warren will not do any better than third. I stuck to that point, and everybody else was like, oh, she's either going to win or she's going to come in second. And I go, no. I was wrong about saying that Bernie would win, but I said she's going to come in third or worse. And look what happened.
I'm glad at least that she came in third in her own state. Like, that's just, the ultimate kind of repudiation of a campaign. But, God, the fact that Biden won Massachusetts, it's so painful.
And now it's starting
health insurance state, baby. What is it? Fucking Mass General Brigham.
And you know that they were just doing that. I think they just did that to like make themselves sound cool and prestigious because like Mass Gen and
Brigham. It's a fucking name that doesn't make any sense, but okay.
No, it does. In the healthcare
world, the two major hospitals.
The Brigham.
I know, but it's just so inelegant to just like Mass General Brigham.
you say in a robot voice.
But, like, it sounds less scary than Partners Healthcare.
Sure.
No, it doesn't, dude.
It sounds marginally less scary because Partners Healthcare, it sounds like a vague, like, opaque, large healthcare system that's, like, wanting to squeeze you out of every dollar you have.
I think it just sounds like that to us because we know that's what it is.
Mass General Brigham.
So I guess an interesting question for everyone here is kind of, what do you think the socialist left is going to do if Biden wins? Like, obviously, if Trump wins, they kind of just continue to do what they're doing. But if Biden wins, suddenly they're in a more oppositional role with the Democratic Party. What do you think the DSA would end up doing under those circumstances with the Biden victory?
I just get a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach.
Sitting on its ass, probably.
Capitulate? Is that what everyone's afraid to say?
Yes. I'm happy that I wasn't the one who had to say that. Thank you for that, Scott.
You walked in at a hot time, Will.
Oh, no.
We just asked the question, what do we think the socialist left will do? What do we think DSA will do under a Biden victory, a Biden administration? And we all just kind of admitted that we might think they will capitulate. So what do you think?
Well, DSA national. What do we think the general? I don't know enough about the organization to make a say. I'm still green around that. I think a lot of
it's a cop out.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people have been set in motion after the last 4 years. And while I agree with the sentiment that I think somebody was making earlier that, yeah, it'll probably slow down a lot, I do think something new has kind of been made. I'm just logging on because I wanted to bitch that Trump's fucking winning everywhere.
It's not looking great.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, I think the DSA has largely defined itself in antagonism to Trump versus antagonism to the Democrats. And it's going to be very hard to decouple and kind of change course, particularly since the DSA has, like I said, no litmus test for membership, no litmus test for endorsement. So the strange thing about it is you'll see a lot of people arguing that the current situation we're in is identical to that of Weimar Germany. Like, they'll say that we're on the verge of fascism developing and we need to use popular front strategies of entering in broad coalitions with liberalism. And honestly, those tactics didn't work the first time. I don't know why people work the second.
I will never get why people are obsessed with, like, the popular front, because, like, as Trump just said, it didn't work. Look how well it worked out for the, like, U.S. Communist Party. Look how well that worked out for them in the 30s and the 40s.
I think it's tempting just because, look at the new left in the 1960s, 1970s. A lot of people that are really hardcore revolutionary rhetoric ended up going on to very cushy, comfortable jobs at the Democratic Party. I think a lot of people in DSA are kind of angling themselves to do the same. Like, have the new left kind of replace the Dixiecrats in the Democratic Party coalition. I think a lot of people in DSA were kind of banking on Bernie winning and then being brought onto the federal government into different bureaucratic positions in a similar fashion to how when FDR won, he massively expanded the bureaucracy. And in the absence of that happening, you instead see people kind of pushing to try to get jobs within the progressive movement, within the activist NGO sphere. And independent socialist political activity threatens that, So I think we're going to have a battle with our own careerist leadership in the year to come, for sure.
I'm a little more...
Question one, just one.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
I'm a little more optimistic about the future and stuff because let's say, leftist candidates had one everywhere and they ended up bringing a lot of, like, their street organizers and stuff with them in leadership positions, like you say. That's usually done with a trail of things getting done that are positive, at the very least. You know what I mean? Like, they do move things in the right direction. And at the very least with all this, every poll coming out is the ideas that DSA stands for and has lobbied for in the past are winning the so-called marketplace of ideas and everything. It's to be goofy on here. Would you look like Medicare for all, something like that? Just different things like that are positively viewed within the majority of people anymore. And DSA is posed in a position to do something good off of that. So
the dial of ideas was turned to low.
Don't run for office in Russia.
I know this is like not related, but I'm just looking up like just Russian constructivism in general. I mean, it's really Soviet constructivism, and it's fucking really cool. Like it's that sort of Sputnik aesthetic, but it's also like rethinking fashion and art and architecture and like the ways that like women can look and all this shit. It's about as progressive as the Soviet Union could have possibly been.
Also, in other news, Cori Bush just officially won her seat.
Woo!
Woo! Is that good or bad?
Good.
Good.
Why wouldn't it be good?
I don't know who that is.
Now, did DSA endorse her, or was she?
Yes, Bernie did too.
But yeah, I guess an interesting book on that subject you might like is called Red Plenty. It's kind of a look at the brief time period of the 1950s when it seemed like the Soviet Union was going to vastly outproduce the United States, and you would have the Soviet Union with all the luxury goods and that kind of thing, the United States being lagging behind. It's an interesting look at it. But I guess to answer the other guy that talked, the New Deal in many ways was a vast improvement over what became before, but at the same time, it really killed the momentum for what could have been a communist movement in the United States because, it co-opted many elements of it.
I'm so glad you're saying this because nobody does. Thank you. Keep going.
Just to give one example related to the civil rights movement, like the CPUSA was a huge leader on the civil rights movement, like to the point that when Joe McCarthy's Red Scare was in full effect, one of the questions they used to try to detect CPUSA members was asking if you were opposed to the segregation of blood banks. That was the thing that kind of got, like the civil rights movement got co-opted by the Democratic Party. So many of these pro-worker elements. I mean, I don't want to sound like an accelerationist, but when capitalist parties adopt elements of your platform, in a lot of ways, that's a defeat for the socialist movement. While certainly people are helped by those things being implemented, it also kind of means that you lose a big part of your appeal. Like the Democrats,
the confrontation.
Democratic socialism would, pretty much co-opt our movement pretty strongly. God, I'm wasted.
Oh, it does make sense to me, though. What's
It was the original Bismarck tactic of creating employee health care.
It's a capitulation.
To take a big part of the appeal of the socialist movement was fermenting in Germany at the time because they were running on universal health care.
This all makes a lot of sense. Fell in the trap.
It's also like the perspective of we'll give you scraps, we'll get you some universal health insurance, and all of you guys, like the pros, will shut the fuck up and let us govern for a little while longer.
Bismarck was a bit of a prick, if you
He was.
Yeah.
Very confident one, though.
Yes, incredibly.
I think that's a thing we have to recognize, at least, that, it was a really good point that was made to me in a Plato history reading Europe the other day. They mentioned that prior to the, Soviet Union turning out like it did, the People's Republic of China turning out like it did, people found socialism pretty intuitive in the sense of it seemed like a self-evident, next step. It seemed like this is clearly what we need. And prior to being able to point to those more negative examples, it was a lot easier of a sell to get people on the idea of we need workers' ownership of the means of production, we need, an abolition of wage labor, that kind of thing. And I think that the fact that when these movements become popular, they kind of get lifted from socialists into these capitalist parties is a problem that we still haven't really figured out a good way to handle, because like universal healthcare, for example, right now it's kind of a Bernie crat thing, but when it gets to the point where the capitalist class feels like they need to make some concessions, that would be a very easy thing for them to flip a switch and grant.
Yeah, like Medicare for all who want it.
Exactly.
Or the
Medicare for all who can afford it.
What was it? Didn't Biden say he was going to try to bring back the public option?
No.
Biden unfortunately
didn't he say that in a debate? Like the last debate, he said he's in favor of Obamacare with the public option?
He has gone on record saying that he would veto Medicare for all, even if it passed both houses of Congress. He said he would veto it on the grounds Hold on. On the grounds that the people obviously wouldn't, if they passed it, wouldn't have done their research about how to pay for it. Do you really think that... Do you really... I mean, just realistically here, do you really think that he's going to go for the public option?
No, he's not.
No, I can see it even in a more extreme sense where you're talking about Medicare for all in the way that Bernie talks about stuff like that with the elimination of private insurance companies and stuff like that being almost like a lizard's tail to the capitalist class. So many bankers are still going to get away with it, oil execs or energy execs, whatever the fuck. And just the capitalist class will still succeed if they have to be healthcare, I guess you guys have to go so we can just get on our yachts and keep with it.
True.
Is anyone else worried by the fact that not only is Trump leading in the popular vote by about 2 million votes right now, but he's got an 8-point lead in Pennsylvania right now?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's very surprising. Interestingly enough, today I did some digging, and apparently the Amish I'm not joking, the Amish have politically mobilized in a way they haven't in prior elections. Previously,
we love them, folks.
Stayed out of it, and they kind of stayed out of it, and the Amish women didn't vote. But this this time around, there's very funny footage of horse buggy parades of Trump banners and the Amish really vote whipping their people and like the women voters as well among them. And there's like 90 to 100,000 of them. That's enough to tip a state.
Why do you think the Amish are all of a sudden going for Trump?
Religious freedom.
Yeah.
The Democrats, I mean, this is the thing I break from them on. I'm kind of the opinion that religious freedom ought to be pretty absolute. People should be able to kind of live their own lives following their faith and whatever it means. But the Democrats have been kind of pushing in some directions toward like abolition of homeschool and requiring involvement in the political system to an extent that the Amish and similar religious separatist groups are fundamentally opposed to. And I think that gives Trump a whole lot of sway because even if the guy is obviously living about as unchristian a life, as you could imagine, his court picks and his policies for religious freedom are the type that would be very advantageous to kind of separatist religious groups.
The Democrats kind of lose
the appointment of ACB.
Yeah, Barrett is definitely a strong victory of theirs, to say the least. And I don't know. I just don't feel like the Democrats are running on giving people very much. Like the one major,
absolutely,
the one major concrete policy goal they've been talking about and running on is basically disarming the American proletariat, like massive gun confiscations.
Yeah, I feel like the Democratic Party, like they lose doubly because they promise things that like it's like none of them are going to get fully implemented, but it's like they alienate half of the country with the promise and half of the country with their like inability to follow through. For instance,
healthcare.
Like, let's say they're going to promise everybody a vaccine. They're going to alienate half the country because they believe that fucking vaccines have, like, mercury in them that are going to give your kids autism. And the other half is, like...
Well, I mean, they're going to start by, like, implementing actual COVID protocols. That's going to alienate people.
Well, and I mean, the people who are like, great, I want to vaccinate my kid. Like, how much does it cost? And they're not going to be able to afford it. Like, nobody wins. Everybody fucking loses. It's like... how they just managed to get stuck in that like political quadrant that doesn't reflect anybody's actual ideology.
Again, they want people to only be political gauged every 4 years when they go to cast a vote in the election. They don't really want to have the pressure to actually deliver on any promises. It's like this idea of if you don't vote for us, the Republicans will win and they'll be worse. It's a really interesting dynamic word.
I do
but
still
if you
listen
vote for us
to.
and we win, we won't do anything yet.
I am not ashamed to say that I still listen to the Majority Report on the daily because I, when Michael Brooks was still alive, paid for like a year's subscription to the Last FM account thing. But like the shit that Sam Cedar says about the Democratic Party, it's like I know that he's probably arguing just in good faith as like a good faith liberal, but he believes that they are genuinely always trying to win and that it would be easier to not donate tons of money to these shitlib centrists. And like, I don't think that that's true at all. I think that the reason the Democratic Party grabs so much money and throws it at bad candidates is because like they need to be the challenger to the Republican Party. Like, I don't
It's
think
a lot more
to
profitable
win.
to be the opposition figure.
But I don't even think it's like really trying to be the opposition figure. It's just like they need to consume the rest of the political landscape. You know what I mean? They don't even care about winning. They don't care about policy. They don't care about changing anything. They just need to be like half of the available
what I mean by,
options.
like, what it's easier to be like the opposition is like because of the class interests of the people at the top of the party. The problem is for them is being a government because like on the one hand that the actual class interests and the interests of their donors that they actually serve is in line with like what the Republicans are pushing for. On the other hand, they're pushed into the bind of the rhetoric they have to espouse to convince the people that vote for them. They want something that is completely antithetical to that. So it's much easier for the Democrats to be in opposition because all they have to do is be like rhetorically opposed to whatever the Republicans are doing. They don't actually have to be
what I'm saying is they're not even rhetorically opposed to what the Republicans are doing. Like,
no, they're not. Like immigration.
But not even like on policy. I'm talking about between parties. Like Joe Biden talks about reaching across the aisle constantly.
Yeah, Joe Biden said he wanted to have like a Republican cabinet. So
like on immigration, they don't have any like meaningful difference, for example.
Like it's not even an opposition. It's just like, oh, those guys are getting kind of wild. Like, but if we strike up we can find common ground on some shit. Like that's not opposition. That's collaboration.
Come on, man.
And even if they do espouse the, well, no, I don't know. I don't have to read the Democrat. We know the Democratic Party fucking sucks. I don't have to like litigate this again. But yeah, I mean, I hear you. It really bothers me that like some of our comrades, even though I love them and they're doing good work for us, I just don't see how they still have faith in the Democratic Party. I just fucking don't.
It's called denial.
Amen.
I actually remember having like an argument with someone the night of the Super Tuesday watch party, and I was like, because we had just figured out like that Bernie lost Massachusetts, and like it became very clear that like obviously Elizabeth Warren like stabbed us all in the back, and someone was actually trying to argue with me that like Elizabeth Warren, there was like a reason to still be like fine with Elizabeth Warren. It's like I was like, she hasn't actually ever done anything for me, and someone else was like, well, but they did some opaque esoteric thing, so I guess we shouldn't be angry at her. Like, what are we doing here?
At least Elizabeth Warren does have somewhat of a decent record with challenging huge banks, but she's a fucking customer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's a capitalist to her bones. I used to be like really into her like a long time ago.
A lot of people I know used to be too.
At least we don't have to deal with the booty bros no more.
That's what they call themselves?
No, that's just what
we call them.
Yeah, my best friend from high school was Booty Bro for a while. She's a lady.
I kind of like it.
I'm still angry that the Booty Bros got me sick back in February.
Dude, that feels like a whole different world. Just like imagine, I don't know, this year feels like the longest year ever and the shortest year ever. Like in some ways, us like going crazy, knocking doors for Bernie back in January, February, March. It feels like another planet, but it also feels like yesterday. It's such a strange experience.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel you on that. Like the saying has been used to death this year, but Lenin's there are weeks where we fuck around and there are days where we find out.
Yes, that exact Lenin quote.
That's not it, bro.
Oh god.
I decided to appropriate it a little bit. I modified it a bit to fit the mood.
But I mean, like, the thing is, we didn't do either, really. Maybe for a little bit.
We did not start the fire.
Yeah, like, there was one guy who lit, like, a cruiser on fire, and it was, like, a goofy white kid. That kid
is burning.
It's just been burning.
Since the world's been turning. It's just, we didn't do it.
That kid has more revolutionary spirit than, like, the entire DSA, which is incredibly depressing. Like, just makes me want to go to bed. Like, wake up and immediately go back to bed. It's gotta be, we gotta do fucking something to save this organization, or just, like, I don't know, because I mean, elections are coming up pretty soon here, and, like, it would be very easy for me to just abandon my post. And not gonna lie, like, I think about it pretty regularly to just be like, fuck this organization. Like, they're not on my page.
Please don't. I don't want to do extra work.
The DSA doesn't have goals. Like, what are the victory conditions? What are the things we are working towards? The DSA doesn't have those. If you don't know what your victory conditions are, how can you develop a strategy for reaching that? How can you act in pursuit of that? Instead, we have something like more of a broad, strange, activist networking organization that tries to basically route every political conflict, every social movement, every protest through itself, rather than trying to see how we accomplish specific goals. Like, you talk to the electoral bunch, they'll say that in 10 years we could have X number of state reps, but there's no answer to what could we do with that? Like, what would the goal be? And in the absence of goals, you're not going to develop a victory strategy that's effective. It's strange, but like a big area of study for me has been like insurgency theory and what makes some guerrilla movements succeed, what others don't. It's strange, but it gives you an idea of what kind of political movements also succeed. And right now, if you don't know what your conditions for winning are, you're never going to accomplish them because you're not going to even be able to think about what it takes to reach them if you don't have them,
So you're sort of a product-oriented socialist rather than a process-oriented one.
I guess so.
The process, I'd say goal-oriented.
The process is how you reach it, but I think you ought to have an idea at least of like, if we had this many state reps, if we had this many city councilors, here's what we would do with them versus let's, just try to get more. Because if you don't have that goal kind of to work towards, then you're kind of aimless and directionless. And a lot of times you just end up kind of getting absorbed in the existing democratic system. Like a lot of the new left guys that ended up becoming pillars of the Democratic Party started out saying they were hardcore socialists, wanted to overthrow capitalism, but they didn't have any kind of framework for, one, getting there, and two, accomplishing those goals. So they just kind of ended up absorbing fully into the systems. Like Barack Obama's mentor, Saul Alinsky, started out as a very radical socialist in a lot of ways, but he ultimately ended up just kind of pioneering the kind of community organizing techniques that groups like, Vita Urbana or Reclaim. I worry that in a weird way, DSA is just going to kind of end up being the force that revitalizes the Democrats now in the way that the New Left revitalized the Democrats then, if that makes any sense.
I understand it, but it's making me cringe.
Yeah, you got to think that for every former socialist like Bill Ayers or Bernardine Dohrn that ended up in some kind of cushy academic position, there's a million people like us that were ideologically committed and really wanted things to happen that just end up in obscurity,
I'm sorry, I've gone down like a brutalist. Constructivist
He's
architecture,
posting some
like
wild
rabbit hole.
architecture in the chat.
That's what I'm looking at.
We're loving
good
it.
stuff. Very good.
Yeah, this is all Soviet. It's all Soviet architecture. Like, it's fucking bullshit when people talk about how, like, under communism you lose your, creativity.
Wait, what was the last one made? Because that one does kind of. Scott's right. That does kind of look like a TIE fighter a little bit.
Darth Vader's TIE fighter.
Probably like Stalin era. Let me check.
I'm going to have to bail for a little bit, but it's been really great being on the show, and I definitely hope to be involved in some future ones.
Thank you.
Yeah,
yes,
man.
you've been excellent.
Thank
Thank you very much for dropping by.
It's always good to see you, Trent.
Likewise, man. Good talk, girl.
Yeah, what is that thing called?
It's called the Monument to the Revolution.
Well, that's a hell of a monument.
That crazy first building I posted was in Georgia. There's like a UFO looking one in Bulgaria. It's like a giant cathedral with the sort of abstract sickle and hammer logo artwork on the ceiling. It's dope.
Yeah, the Soviets had some pretty great art.
I had to say this, but Mike Siegel's down 3.6 points now.
Mike Siegel? Who is he?
Isn't it SEIGEL?
Yeah, SIEGEL.
That was a great joke, Scott.
You ever seen that Finding Nemo?
Oh, that completely
Fuck you.
No, it's
honestly, I'm just gonna link you guys to this article because it's just got like a treasure trove of fucking weird looking Soviet architecture.
The name of this trash can is ideology.
It's really kind of disconcerting.
What?
Union voters in Ohio went for Trump 56-42 according to the exit poll.
Our boys. How does that make us feel better, boys? Well,
this is what happens when you roll the worst possible fucking people every fucking time.
Nothing worse, though, than the fucking Bernie stands who, like, still think that the Democratic Party is going to, quote-unquote, learn their lesson when they lose again.
Nope! They're just going to blame the left again, you stupid cocks. Ooh, I said it.
I wonder if people can figure out it's not us. Finally.
What? The 2.5 beers I've had are hitting me hard right now, by the way.
It's like, don't you guys know that, like, it's always the left's fault?
Yes. It's Ralph Nader's fault.
The libs have forgiven George W. Bush, but they're still, like, pissy about, like, Ralph Nader.
Who killed more people?
Well, actually, Ralph Nader saved more people.
Yes, that was exactly the answer I was looking for. Thank you. He helped get seatbelt regulation passed. So if you ever had a fender bender and you only had a fender, you ever had a fender bender? And you're like, oh, I got a little whiplash, Didn't, like, break your fucking neck. Get that Ralph Nader, motherfucker, because you had that seatbelt on, bitch. And then you're like, oh, Clinton's chances. I'm still mad about that. Why am I still mad about that?
Ralph Nader is also largely the reason EPA.
Don't laugh.
Just pointing that out.
You can smell the beer on this.
Still gets talked about.
You can smell it? That's impressive.
It's not a very robust smell. I'm drinking a Hootie, 6-point brewery, 6.2% alcohol by volume. Yes,
hey man, I've been fucking clean
good
since 2009. I'll take whatever vicarious drunkenness I can get.
All right. So what are we gonna do? Do we think there's gonna be a Civil War 3, 2? Think that's gonna happen?
That'd be pretty tight.
That would be dope. Civil War would be tight. It's the official word from Jesse. Anybody else has feelings towards this? Because I really don't think things like that will happen. So.
Yeah, like that's another thing that kind of confuses me is that it seems like there are some socialists with like genuinely good ideology that are convinced that like we are going to be like shooting each other in the streets with like fucking helmets on and like there's gonna be like explosions and there's gonna be like the chuds are gonna stay angry and have like probably
either way it goes.
Sex.
Like the angry people will stay angry and will keep posting, and the not angry people will do whatever the fuck they want, because they'll probably be the people in power, and then everybody else will just go back to their lives because capitalism is the problem, and these two parties support it, and that's what's killing the soul of America. That was supposed to be a grand statement, but no one seemed to. Okay, fine, it's great.
Yes, you need to put in a sound drop, dude. Like,
I was hoping that my own essence would be enough, but apparently I need a sound drop. That's fine.
Dun, 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 dun.
Sorry, I was just staring at like the question.
Damn, boy. Damn, boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick ass boy. Damn.
Just real. Spencer.
Biden just won New Hampshire.
Biden won New Hampshire. Woo! Damn, boy, he's thick.
Hey, that's a lot faster than Hillary did because in 2016, I was actually
because New Hampshire is a misogynistic state.
I was in my math class the next morning when they finally got around to calling New Hampshire, like 10 o'clock in the morning the next day.
I thought that was funny. Jesus Christ, tough crowd.
I legit just like blacked it. Like I don't know what just happened.
Sorry, that was a bit much.
A little bit.
It was
a little bit.
I made that drop like only about like an hour ago. So. I was thinking like, I want, if Biden really pulls ahead and he gets like that thick lead, then we can play the Fantano clip of him saying, damn, the boy's thick. And I don't think we're going to get that thick lead tonight, so I'm free to play it whenever I want.
He's down 4 points in Texas. He's down 1.3 points in North Carolina. He's down 55.1 to 42.3 in Pennsylvania. He's down 53.1 to 45.5 in Ohio. He's trailing 54.7 to 43.6 in Michigan, and he's trailing 51.3 to 47.2 in Wisconsin. He does have a lead of 53.7 to 45 in Arizona, though.
What a cuck.
135 to 108 in the electric college, baby. They're doing that electric slide.
So Biden's trailing by about
that
2 million
electric
votes.
Slide to 538.
Trailing like 2 million votes in the popular vote right now. 45 million to 42,314,000. Not great, Bob.
I love democracy. I love the republic.
Not great, Bob.
Who's that other guy? Sounds like a fucking pope.
It's from Star Wars. It's Palpatine. It's Palpy.
Well, then he looks like the pope too.
Palpatine's behind it all. Whoa.
It was a Palpatine job.
As we found out at the end of the Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine was behind it all. Oh yeah, we could talk about Star Wars for a little bit.
He's behind everything.
Oh my god.
And I would kill us. Slowly.
Jesse,
have a sound choke me out.
Do you feel worse about Star Wars or Star Trek? Do you hate both of them?
I don't care about them equally.
Star Trek, alright. Star Trek has themes of socialism.
I would not have pegged Jesse as a Trekkie, would you have?
No, I wouldn't have either, you're right.
Not even a little bit, nope.
It's not, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I'm a nerd, but with...
Not that kind of nerd?
Right.
But you're not a geek, per se.
Or maybe I'm a geek and not a nerd, I don't fucking know. From what I understand from, like, old people who like to talk about how things were when they were younger, those terms have, like, swapped.
There's definitely been some drift, yeah. I mean, there's no, like, biting off the heads of chickens or whatever anymore.
Wait, what?
That's
biting off the heads of new chickens, whatever it were.
Oh, yeah, Joe, today, this is your, weekly, you're gonna explain to Joe what a geek is? Traditionally it was, I think it was, like, at carnivals?
Yeah.
The people that bit the heads off of live chickens, they were called geeks. I need to actually, I'm gonna check myself on that, because I feel like I might be getting that wrong.
I love that it, like, Ellie's like, oh, it's like the weekly, it's the time of the week where we explain this thing.
That is one big pile of shit.
This is the segment, this is our segment called Joe is Very Young. Joe is a baby.
Yes.
A geek, noun, a performer at a carnival or circus whose show consists of bizarre or grotesque
Wow, that
acts.
was quick. Right on the dot too.
When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
So they just called all 3 states on the West Coast. It's 11:01 p.m.
All 3?
The polls have closed in Washington, Oregon, and California, and all 3 states have been instantly called for Biden.
Boy, maybe he does have that thick lead.
Also, Idaho was called for Trump. So Biden now leads in the Electoral College 209 to 112.
To 209.
Wow, they called it like a minute after the polls closed.
Oh my. So, shit. Joe, are you suggesting when you say they're calling it a minute after the polls close that there's some sort of Democratic electoral interference we should be talking about?
No, because they have like an idea of which way it's going
We
to go.
have the power of the internet.
Just trying to do like a Southern fried lawyer. Are you saying, sir, that there might be some sort of democratic miscalculation here?
Also, Oregon does like almost all of its, even before COVID, they did almost all of their voting by like mail anyways. So like Oregon's been doing almost entirely vote by mail for like at least a decade or two at this point. So like it's 11:02 and 55% of Oregon's votes have already been counted.
Did you see Trump this morning on the TV where he's like talking about it and like he seemed really drained and like he seemed like he was basically accepting that he was going to lose?
No, do tell.
I kind of just did. Yeah.
He just did.
No, I thought you were going to.
He was on Fox and Friends and he just seemed really tired. Even granted though, like he was at an event really late last night, but he seemed really out of it and he seemed like he didn't really like just have like he seemed like he had accepted that like it was over and that like he was going to lose. So yeah,
Really?
like it's been like
You don't think it was the COVID?
also yes he's a 74-year-old man with COVID, yes, but like. At the same time, it's just like, if you look at his tweets and if you look at the speeches that he's been giving, it seems like he's like trying to transition away from like actually being president and into that like ideal, like giving the rousing speech, like stoking the ideological like troops on the streets. Not that I think they're going to come out on the streets and be like violent. They're going to go to the rallies and do that shit, you know? But I think he's transitioning into continuing that as his career and also to some extent being a pundit in that regard. So,
Trump would be hilarious.
That's all he wants to do.
Oh God, yes, I would love to see it.
Honestly, like I would actually be like completely there for. Like,
he could continue every single conspiracy theory, and like he wouldn't have to own up to anything he says. He wouldn't be under the same type of microscope, you know. And a lot of people would just see him as a joke and stop paying attention. But he would be perfect for it.
So we have a guy that didn't even want to win it in the first place, about to accidentally win it twice.
Yep.
Like this, there is just no bottom to the comedy of this.
I know. It is, again.
It's the story of America. There's no bottom to the comedy.
First is tragedy, then there's farce.
He fucketh around.
He fucketh about.
What?
He's starting to sound like the safety dance over
He
there.
fucketh left. He fucketh right.
So Joe, talk to me for a second. At this point, wow, with what's going on with the Electoral College, is there an avenue for Trump or what?
Possibly, actually. It really comes down, again, it comes down to the mail-in vote. We're not going to know anything for days, if not weeks, on that front.
And I don't want to admit this, but it looks like your map is starting to come close to being accurate.
My map was starting to look more accurate. I know. I've been noticing that the last 3 hours, and it started to freak me out.
You motherfucker. We got our own little Nate Silver.
This is the problem with being right so often, is that I'm usually not happy about it.
Don Jr.'s map's gonna win, actually.
That was the funniest fucking thing ever.
Which country in Africa did he like randomly?
Liberia.
Yeah, Liberia, which does have a democratic, like slightly socialist, like government. So like it kind of makes sense, but
like I think it's hilarious that like Portugal and Spain were marked in like Portugal, Spain, and Vietnam are all red, but Vietnam is like a market socialist economy. Spain is currently governed by the Socialist Party and Podemos, and Portugal has been ruled by a coalition socialist communist government for the past 5 years.
Can I note something that seems to be the trend that I find to be rather interesting tonight? And I don't know if Joe, if you notice this too. It's the opposite of last time. What I mean by that is Trump is leading in the popular vote right now, but not in the Electoral College. And Biden is leading the Electoral College, but is slightly trailing by like 2 million votes in the
I've been noticing that the whole night.
It's the flip of 2016. It's really weird.
It's so fucking surreal. I've been noting that like the whole night. Like it's a little weird that he's still trailing by like 2 here, or the fact that like Florida went almost instantly last.
That is what I'm talking about when I mean like a like democratic intervention. But at the same time, it's like most of the Supreme Court judges now, Superior Court judges now, are all like hard right leaning. So like, what the fuck? It's a weird night, bro. It's a weird night, everybody. It's election night in America.
It's tough to adjust the reality that like a third of the Supreme Court like worked for the Republicans on Gore v. Bush.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Yeah, Kavanaugh.
It's kind of hard to swallow.
Our ACB. Amy Coney 2012, Barrett.
Yeah.
They both worked
Amy Coney 2012
to get George W. Bitch. The
Kavanaugh and Alito.
In the government to be our president and killed millions of Iraqi people, which is...
Yeah. So what if the guy threw a shoe at me?
It's like Kavanaugh, ACB, and I want to say either Alito or Robert were the three that were working for the GOP on Bush v. Gore. Also, 5 of the 9 Supreme Court justices were appointed by presidents who didn't win the popular vote.
Was Roberts or Alito on the Supreme Court at that point, or were they appointed by George W. Bush?
Yeah, Alito and Roberts were both George W. Bush appointees.
All right.
I gotta clarify something that you said, Scott. Liberia is not. It's not even close to being a socialist nation. It's
more.
It's like
no. Go off. You can correct me. Sorry.
It's like what we have here.
I'm sorry, Liberia. I apologize. Joe finds it very funny. The unfortunate government we live under.
Joe finds everything very funny, which is wonderful.
But in Don Jr.'s mind,
the ruling party is the Coalition for Democratic Change, which is like it's like the American Republican Party.
I already am eating from the trash can all the time.
Ideology, big tent, nationalism, social conservatism, economic liberalism, and authoritarianism. That sounds like what we have.
For the record, Ali, I only find almost everything funny.
Well, good. What's going on with Nevada?
Thank you. It's good to know.
Question 2 is not so funny because with
what's going on with question 2?
62% of the vote is in, and if you can look at the screen that I'm streaming right now, the map doesn't look great. It's 53.1% for no, 46.9% for yes.
You fucks.
That's not a good looking map right there.
Can you go which color is which?
Green is no.
Weird.
The orange color is yes.
Hey, Will, look who's green.
What? Where? What?
Your little town down there is green, buddy.
Oh, where are you guys?
Look at Joe's screen that he's sharing.
We lost Ellie.
We did.
They will probably be back.
We found him.
We found Ellie.
Yeah. They're back!
Sorry.
Anyways, Cohasset was against, is what my point was.
Against Frank Joyce? Yeah, I'm not shocked.
Fuck you!
Joe,
did you not put a sign in your drawer, your lawn?
Yeah, I didn't. I don't know.
Oh, wow. My hometown has voted against it, it would seem.
Yeah.
The suburbs are dick suckers.
Looks like Cape Ann voted against it too.
Yep. Wow. With all precincts reporting in Melrose, question no has prevailed in Melrose, 50.9%.
Wait,
Go down.
This is 2. Okay.
Go down to Cohasset. Oh, those things. Yeah, there you go. 57-43. No.
Lowell so far, only 3 precincts are in, but Lowell's so far solidly in the yes column.
Marshfield just came in 69% no.
Nice.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Fucking Marshfield.
I know a couple people in Marshfield. That does not surprise me even slightly.
I just want to mention how great it is. I think that the Globe now has their sort of headings at the top, and it's like macro, sports, business, opinion, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually it's like marijuana.
Dude.
Like, hell yeah.
I love that they put marijuana next to the arts.
Yeah.
It's between lifestyle.
And the arts. I love it. We love it, people. We love it. We love to see it.
Speaking of somebody who used to work in journalism, I don't know. Maybe it's extra funny to me. I'm not sure.
Ali, you would be like the perfect marijuana reporter.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, that's already going to be my next career. I've decided I want to be a weed delivery person.
I want to be a weed guy.
Come deliver me some weed.
I will, Joe.
I was just gonna say that I appreciate that we've been recording for so long, and that
I'm having fun.
And I'm just saying that Jesse, like, the fact that you're willing to work on this is commendable.
I know. I am a treasure.
God damn it! I try to give him so much appreciation.
I know, man.
You guys are so lucky to have me.
You guys want to go?
Kind of fucking are, yeah. And if you're listening to this for the hours that this is going to be, because we'll probably just release a raw feed, well, we love you.
I don't know. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm not going to psych myself out. It'll be a challenge.
We could make some of it, a regular episode and then some of it Patreon, and then do the other Patreon thing that we're doing. So we got options, folks.
I honestly think, I laughed so hard that I don't know what happened, but some brain cells definitely died. I'm, still on the rebound from that. I don't know how the fuck that happened. It feels a lot. When I was in rehab, some kid gave me, a space monkey, and it feels like that. It makes you feel fucking mentally compromised for the rest of the day. For our listeners who don't know what a space monkey is, it's...
Thank you.
I was going to ask.
It's what drug addicts do in rehab when they can't get real drugs. They choke each other until you pass out and hallucinate on, your own DMT because your body thinks you're dying.
You better choke me out.
I'm sorry, it was too appropriate.
It was perfectly appropriate.
I'm really. I know Scott was the one who brought it up first, but I'm really not thrilled about the fact that my map is starting to look accurate.
What is going on with the fog? Seriously.
Because I had Trump winning Texas, Georgia, and Florida, and he's leading in all three states. I also had Trump taking Ohio, and he has a lead there by about 8 points.
Do you think Maine's going to split like that?
I think Maine is going to split because Trump carried the Maine 2nd district last time.
And mouse over Massachusetts again for a sec. Jo Jorgensen got how many?
She's gotten 1.3% of the vote.
Ugh.
That kind of terrifies me a little bit.
She was a Green candidate?
Yeah, she's the libertarian. No, she's the
A
libertarian.
libertarian candidate.
Okay, more depressing.
Yep.
She's the no step on Sneck candidate.
What?
For perspective,
don't tread on me, but it's saying no.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Step on Sneck.
Yeah, no step on Sneck.
My brain's not firing at the right capacity.
1.3% sounds pretty bad, but for perspective, Garrett Johnson got 4.2% in Massachusetts last cycle.
Isn't that the 5% that we're after though? But we want it for the
5% nationally.
Yeah, but wouldn't we want that for even for the libertarians or no?
Not really, because they're insane. Because either you end up with libertarians, you either end up like morons with Garrett Johnson who don't know anything, or you get sociopathic eugenicists like Jorgensen. It's not a great balance.
Some random dude is messaging me because some girls, I guess, sent me nudes or something a long time ago. I don't know what the fuck is happening. This is pretty bizarre.
I do not have a good feeling about ranked choice voting question right now. Not looking good. It's looking about as bad as Ohio is.
I also got a bad feeling about it.
It's not making me feel happy. I think the problem is that Boston's not going to be enough to really make a dent because question 2 isn't running up a big enough margin in Boston because it's only up 61-38, but statewide it's trailing 53-46.
Like I said, the state is going to find a way to kill it.
One way or another. Fucking Charlie Baker, man. Ugh.
We should start a doc for things for Jesse to tell Charlie Baker in future episodes.
Is that gonna be? Are we gonna make this a weekly segment of where Jesse calls the governor to tell him to go fuck himself?
Yeah, I like it. Let's see how far I can go.
I actually like this idea.
I don't want anyone to get in trouble, but let's get creative.
No one's gonna get in trouble unless we're threatening him with violence, which we probably won't be.
We're just telling him that he's a moron.
This guy is saying,
And what is Aleppo?
Yes, that was perfect.
This guy says, she sent you nudes of herself. I said I'm in a monogamous relationship. He said, I know you are. That's why I said I'm not mad at you. You seem put off by the whole thing. I don't know what the fuck this guy is talking about, yeah.
Where did you say this guy contacted you?
He called
me last year at work because fucking one of my friends, I call her we're snakebite gang because we're both named Jess. Well, her name's Jess and she has snake bites. And my name is Jesse, and I have snake bites, so snakebite gang. But her ex is fucking crazy. I don't know why he's messaging me.
Have you considered it's because he's crazy?
Yeah, but I don't know. I just thought he was always too fucked up to use the phone.
So this is impressive, is what you're saying.
Kinda, yeah. It's, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
You should be I'm getting rid of my phone. Here's my new number, and then just give him Charlie Baker's number.
Honestly, this cycle
No, I'm just
tonight
gonna
is
block
starting
him.
to feel like a slow moving car crash, but like in a
Just crashed
different
where?
way.
Into what?
2016 also felt like a slow moving car crash at some points, but like not as quickly.
So a slower moving car crash.
Actually, it was around this point in the night when like it became incredibly apparent that Clinton was kind of fucked because Michigan started to go red.
Yeah, I do remember
this point in the night. And I remember at about like midnight 12, it was at 12:05 a.m. that Wisconsin went red and stayed that way for the rest of the night. And it's like 11:20 and it's already like we're at that point again where like Biden's up to 209 electoral votes and that's like kind of as far as Clinton got for most of the night. She like got to 209 and stayed there for most of the night after that. We're at that point again where like the Democrat has gotten up to 209 electoral votes. California is already included. It's like, how do we get to the other 61? And there aren't really any clear options right now.
I said, sorry, dude, I don't really know what to tell you. And he said, just stay away from our family. And I said, okay, I'm going to start with blocking you.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least it was a thing where like the solution was agreeable to everyone.
Yep, no love lost.
It was 227 to 304 in 2016, which...
Well, it's 227 because there were like 3 electors who voted for Bernie.
Ooh.
There was 1 in Hawaii, and then there was 1 or 2 in Washington State who like voted for Bernie instead of Hillary, like they were supposed to.
I swear, I thought you were going to say instead of Hitler.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally heard Hitler.
Well,
which you should vote for Bernie instead of Hitler.
Actually, Bernie...
It's an advisable vote.
Almost 6% of the electorate in Vermont wrote in his name.
I love that.
Hell yeah.
It broke Vermont's all-time record for like the highest percentage of vote for like a write-in in a presidential campaign.
The thing about Vermont that always, like we've said, Bernie's a lovable cuck. Like, I still think he's by far the best senator, but like, Vermont is so fucking white.
Vermont is tied with Maine as like the whitest state in the country. I shit you not.
Yeah, so it's like very hard to extrapolate how you can't say like, well, if it works in Vermont, then it could work somewhere else. It's like, dude, Vermont
is
like
literally 95% white.
It's like a farm.
Yeah, true.
No, I mean, I'm not trying to hate on Vermont. Like, I'm sure it's great. You know what I mean? They have good politics, but it's a pasty ass state. Yeah.
I lived in Vermont for like a month, so yeah, it is.
I love living in Boston. I'm very grateful to live here. Like, I feel really weird when I go back to places like Gloucester because it's just too white. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like the vibes.
Yeah, I love Boston too. My hometown is actually not very white at all, and actually I was a minority there. Everybody's Latino where I'm from. But I feel you. I feel you on the creepy whiteness.
Trump's home state is Florida?
They're saying it's his home state because of Mar-a-Lago, I think.
Boston is majority minority.
It's true.
As of 2010.
That's pretty cool. Even like considering the like West Roxbury and all the really white areas.
Yep, it's 47% white.
Yeah, Lowell's about the same. Lowell's like 48% white.
The age demographics are really weird that the Census Bureau uses. Like, they have under 5 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, 25 to 64, and then 65 plus.
Yeah, where are they getting their numbers?
From the census, probably.
No, I mean, like, are those like critical developmental stages in a person's life, or what was the deal?
Probably has to do with the fact that like there's nothing between the ages of 25 and 64 that changed legally for you. Like,
oh yeah, like you can rent a car when you're 25 or whatever,
and like you can be on your own health insurance, and then when you hit 65, like you're a senior, so you're eligible for Medicare and stuff like that. I mean, it's probably tied to capital, I would guess.
Yeah, like everything is.
Yeah, like fucking everything else.
Biden's getting a lead in Maine, by the way.
You've been leading in Maine for a while.
Yeah, but he was only leading by like half a point, and now he's actually leading by a few points. So
remember, Maine has ranked choice voting, so it won't really matter that much, anyways.
Oh fucks!
This will actually be the first time that ranked choice voting could actually be used in a presidential race.
Did they pass it recently?
Yeah, they passed it a couple years ago. It was used in the last cycle, but this will be the first presidential election in which Maine uses ranked choice voting.
Oh, okay. I recall a question 2 here did not include presidential election.
Which I'm just checking now with about 66% in. Yes on 2 is at 46.4. No on 2 is at 53.6. And I still hate Charlie Baker.
So it might be a moot point now. But that's how Massachusetts would have fucked up ranked choice voting, is they wouldn't apply it to the...
Just by not doing it at all.
Yeah, by not doing it on the on the presidential election, which is the one where it like kind of matters the most, as well as the Senate.
Actually, I think it matters more in Massachusetts with the governorship because, like,
and like Trent said,
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Absolutely open up like the fucking like House and like people running for local office. So
Charlie Baker's only governor because like this guy Evan Falchuk, who comically is actually like really, really pushing for yes on 2, even though he's like actually responsible for Charlie Baker. He ran in 2014 and he got like 3% of the vote, and Baker won by like 2 points against Martha Coakley, and now we're stuck with him. So of course he's against yes on 2. He wouldn't be where he is if it existed.
I hope somebody makes like a deep fake Charlie Baker voice so that I can make him say, I tried so hard and got so far.
And in the end, it didn't even matter.
It just didn't matter.
Trump takes the lead in Iowa.
Yeah,
my map is starting to look.
It's Iowa. It's gonna fall.
I'm so unhappy that I'm right.
But in the end, does your map say that Biden wins?
It does, but like it also.
So we just spent like 4 hours talking about why it doesn't really matter.
But in the end, but like it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it could or it could. It depends on like if like the state legislatures like try to pull some shit.
It could probably maybe, but most likely won't matter.
Like, I guess it, in a sense, like it does matter because if the Democrats were to take the Senate, then they would still be, everything would get vetoed. But with the way that things have been, like, you know, some motherfucker like Joe Manchin or, I don't know, give me a centrist.
Kirsten Sinema.
Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema would fuck it up for us, so.
I mean, they are the two most conservative Senate Democrats. Doug Jones of Alabama had a better voting record than Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Granted, that's kind of a moot point, seeing as he has only gotten 37% of the vote.
I mean, see, yeah, since
it's Alabama.
Since he just like wasn't a pedophile, like that was the criteria.
You know what's insane though? 47.5% of Alabamans voted for an alleged child molester.
Why is that surprising? Alabama, I think, has the lowest age of consent in the country. I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna look it up right now.
Also, can you do it with pegs? Real no fooling pegs?
What?
Is there somewhere where bestiality is legal?
With a peg.
Correction. Roy Moore got 48.3% of the vote. So 48.3% of Alabamans voted for a person they knew was probably a child molester.
That's some NAMBLA shit.
Also, the Democrat in North Carolina is trailing by 1.7, and that's a race Democrats actually need to get the Senate back. So that's not good.
So what if Biden wins the presidency but doesn't get the Senate back? What are you feeling then?
Honestly, I've been thinking a lot about that in the past like 6 or 7 months, and I honestly don't know what happens.
Nothing.
That hasn't happened in like decades. Because typically, like the party of the candidate that wins the presidency usually ends up holding the Senate like the year that they take office. Like Trump had the Senate in 2017. Obama had the Senate in 2009. George W. Bush had the Senate in 2001. Bill Clinton still had control of the Senate in 1993. George H.W. Bush, I think, was the last president to come into power with the other party controlling the Senate. But that was a different time, so to speak. The level of polarization was not nearly what it is now. So I have honestly no idea what the fuck would happen if Mitch McConnell is still the Senate Majority Leader in January with a Biden president. Like, does that mean the cabinet just doesn't get filled?
Yeah, it'd be pretty LOL.
So I need to clarify. The age of consent in Alabama is on the low end, but it is on the low end along with 30 other states. So
And define the low end. Like, what is the exact age?
16. It's the same in Massachusetts.
Oh,
okay. I thought it was going to be like 14 or something.
I think that's the legal age of consent in France. Because I remember like 4 or 5 years ago that it was a big thing that like the age of consent in France went up from like 12 to 14.
Oh god. It's an important distinction. Those are some very formative years right there.
Yeah, the state laws in Alabama were like, I don't know, I guess they've gotten a little more progressive with their wording since then. Or at least proposed some new language.
Oh god, I can't believe Ben Shapiro is a fucking DSA member. I know
That's hilarious. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I think that's that's pretty dope that he did that. That's funny.
The Senate map is not looking good right now.
Oh, it's the fucking Senate!
Because mercifully, John Ossoff is getting crushed. Because I hate John Ossoff.
Go say it.
I don't because like John Ossoff is like kind of like a proto Pete Buttigieg. Well, duh, it goes without saying. Abolish the Senate.
Yeah, but you can say it loud.
Say it, motherfucker.
I'm not like at that level of anger yet about the Senate.
Say it.
At least not right now.
Oh,
mercifully, Ossoff is getting crushed.
Who the fuck is that?
John Ossoff. He's that. I don't know if you guys remember that special House election in Georgia 3
John
years ago.
Ossoff?
He raised $50 million for a special House election. The average amount of money that is spent by like both parties combined is about between $2 to $3 million. He raised 50, and he still couldn't seal the deal.
Fucking idiot.
Now he's losing by 9 points. They're losing in Georgia. They're losing in North Carolina. The Democratic candidate in Iowa, Therese Greenfield, she's trailing by 3. Susan Collins is currently leading in Maine. The Democratic incumbent in Michigan is actually losing by 13. It's not looking great.
This is like probably I don't want to say the worst possible outcome, but like it's not a funny outcome. It would have been funnier if Trump won and all the Democratic senators won.
Yeah, if there's some sort of like landslide or change on one direction, I don't know. It's like gridlock.
It's just like ever decreasing effectiveness of the powers that govern.
I mean, Nevada's red. What the fuck?
Yeah, I was gonna say Nevada's coming in, and it's
usually
not looking great.
There's like 12 people there. You know,
Nevada, Las Vegas is in Nevada.
Woo! I know. That's it.
Like sell used cars.
No. There are like some old military installations and
Area 51. Yeah. There's some aliens.
There's definitely some UFO wreckage that, assuming those aliens are, naturalized citizens by now, they probably will vote for Biden.
Killers write a lot of songs about Las Vegas.
They do.
That's where Flowers is from.
My apologies to the aliens. Kind of tired tonight. So.
Shit, that
I
alien.
think you're purely humans in your silly elections. You think you can decide your future, your fate through these electoral quandaries. You will not.
Hey, what's your name, Aaron?
I have a name.
What's your name? So that
if I said it, you wouldn't understand.
Would my brain
your
blow
brain
up?
would blow up.
Okay. Can I call you Bob?
Yes. That is an understandable name for your
Bob the alien.
For your human brain to understand that you do not interrupt me, human.
Bob, do you guys do you govern via telepathy and group meditation?
Yes, but on scope and the size and in ways you would not understand, human.
So, like, even in alien races, there's still a need for governance of some sort.
Group decision making.
I told you there's a need for the state.
It's not the same conceptualization as a state.
But, like, the Marxist
Your human minds are bound too much by your third dimensions.
The Marxist-Leninists are where it's at. Am I right, Bob?
Or whatever.
Oh, come on.
All right, fine.
There you have it.
Is that one host dying of COVID? What is that?
It's
Who is?
Conspiracy.
It's Joe coughing a lot, Joe. Never mind. Jesus.
I'm laughing, not coughing.
All right, it's fine, Joe. Whatever.
Well,
Oh, bro.
71% of the votes in, 71.5%, and we're still at only 46% yes on 2. Way to go, Charlie. Way to go. Maybe you should call him again.
Tell him what?
That he's an asshole for telling all the judges to vote no on 2. All the sheeple.
All right.
But do it in like a different voice.
You know what I forgot? I forgot about the bit I was going to introduce. Oh, well.
Oh, no.
That elections are every 4 years. They're just Black Phillip turning into the devil and asking.
Oh.
What sounds like significant democracy?
I can't even understand that.
Have you seen the Vavitch?
No.
I feel like you don't have to see the Vavitch to...
Yeah, I like that one more.
Oh, the robot.
I didn't catch what you said.
Joe!
What sounds like significant democracy? Like that? Like that? We're gonna march on the streets. The blood is gonna flow in the streets.
You know what Rockefeller said?
The people united will never be defeated. What did he say?
He said the best time to buy is when the streets run red with blood.
The best time to buy, like, stocks?
Like to invest.
Or what? Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, good, okay.
Joe, did Nevada just go back to being not a color? Because Nevada was red on my map, and then I refreshed, and now it's not.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
Is that Democratic quackery happening?
Probably.
No, I think that's a Biden. I think that's a Biden color, but maybe
It's
not.
no color.
Looks like it matches his skin for sure.
Yeah, that
great.
totally matches.
It was saying 70-30 in favor of Trump, and now it's this is what you get with election night coverage, folks. It's the end of the world.
This is the new normal.
It's the end of the world.
Yeah, Nevada's like there's no color in Nevada.
Comrade Scott tells you what to watch.
I just want to say you should watch the movies Election and The Dead Zone. And also Hard to Be a God. They're good. They are relevant to much of the conversations that we've had tonight. That was my part. You can talk now, Jesse.
I can't remember.
I love you guys. It's been a fun night.
Yeah, this is great.
This is a fun fucking podcast.
It's fucking fun. We're just gonna start quoting our own sound drops after a while. And we're just like not even say them anymore. It's very much what happened on the Majority Report. So
then we will make sound drops of ourselves saying those things, and this cycle will continue.
Yeah, and then the people who were in the original sound drops will start quoting us.
Oh my
God.
God.
Ben Shapiro, you're gonna fucking quote me.
Fucking meta.
Wet ass P-word.
Wet ass P-word.
I actually don't want Ben Shapiro to quote me. I'd like him to keep my name and all of my words out of his mouth.
Fuck you, Ben Shapiro.
I'm gonna start calling him Comrade Shapiro.
I do like that one.
The only other one that
it's not good bit.
There's two other people that have the honorary comrade title, and that's Jeb Bush and Britney Spears.
Jebra!
Hell yeah, Britney's comrade.
Does no one else remember that's what Trump called him in the primary?
Jebra.
Please clap.
I like it. Oh yeah, that's just Will was right. Like, there is no comedy like Trump being serious about stuff.
I remember watching one of the Republican primary debates in 2016. He was like, Jebra, it's my turn to talk.
What a fucking nickname.
He had to nickname everybody to show that he was better than them.
His nicknames are terrible, though. Like, most of them are...
Yeah, they were really bad.
Sleepy Joe.
Some of them are funny, but it's like, he's not even trying anymore.
Pocahontas, which...
how the fuck is Chuck and Nancy? Like, that's not a nickname. It's just their first
one of the
name.
more offensive ones. I take that one back. Sorry, I said that.
It's okay. You can point out that he was...
I was quoting Trump.
A racist nickname. Oh, did you guys see... do you remember Shiva?
It's actually Dave in the cave who said that, not me.
Actually...
That Scott guy, it was me, Dave. I said that.
There's a giant Shiva sign about half a mile down.
I was saying the racist thing about Elizabeth Warren. I was calling you Pocahontas.
There's a giant Shiva sign.
This bit is getting a little bit too edgy, so...
There's there's a massive Shiva sign like half a mile down the road from my house, and the people who lived there after he lost the Republican primary, they added a part that says "Write in Shiva" because he didn't make it on the ballot.
Wow. Yeah, he spent a lot of money on ads as a write-in candidate.
Yeah, he said it takes a real Indian to beat Pocahontas.
His ads are terrible too. They're so bad. They're like it's like stock footage of like sad children standing like in
they're hilarious.
Grid formation. They're so bad.
Also, like the voiceover is just it sounds robotic.
One of the fucking chuds at work I didn't know who he was at the time, but started citing that guy as like a reputable source of like medical information.
Oh, because he was a doctor or something?
Yeah.
Is he that kind of doctor though?
I think he was like a medical student or something, and now he's insane. Moral of the story, I can't even.
Moral of the story, don't become insane.
Oh, dude, it's too late for that shit.
Too late, Joe. Already been there, already done that.
All right, out of respect for Carlene, I'm gonna.
Before we hop off, are we gonna postpone the meeting tomorrow in favor of protesting?
Yeah,
the meeting's at 8.
I want to rock some heads or whatever. No, that's not what it's called. I want to make some heads roll. Yeah.
Because if we do postpone, I'm most likely going to come down, but can't really do both because it would take me too long to get back up.
Oh yeah, you don't have a laptop, do you?
Well, I mean I do, but I can't bring a laptop with me.
That's probably not a good idea. I gotta remember to wear my glasses.
What do you want to bet? There's 150 cops just standing around. Where the fuck is everyone?
Idly whacking their hands with their billy clubs.
Where are all the people we're supposed to brutalize?
Gotta brutalize something.
It's like, Bob, I got my hopes up. I wanted to beat up someone tomorrow with my billy club, and there's no one for me to beat up. Can I take a whack at you?
I'm just going to McDonald's. I want a fucking hamburger.
It's like the cops start beating each other up out of boredom.
One of them sees the reflection in a window that's not boarded up and is
puffs his pecs out.
Okay, but in all seriousness, what are we doing tomorrow? Are we having a meeting? We're not having a meeting.
I don't fucking know. I feel like it'd be pretty late to cancel, but at the same time, I don't know. I really don't even care anymore. I just don't.
And we also don't have to decide the second. Joe just, I guess, needs to know at some point before the protest.
We'll let you know after the protest, Joe.
Just go to the protest, and then later you can find out whether you missed the meeting.
Oh, that'd be even worse if it was just Joe downtown.
Oh, poor Joe. Yeah.
150 cops.
Oh no.
You there, citizen! Mr. Joe! We see you!
Way to leave me hanging, guys.
Did I imagine it, or did Biden's number just jump? I think I imagined it.
No, it did jump to 213.
You know what I'm curious about, actually? Why don't you go open, is there, a right-wing, outlet? Well, I mean, a more right-wing outlet that has, a different map? Because I feel like this could all be a bunch of bullshit for all
Yeah, they just jumped for me too. It's 213.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to donjr.com.
I'm gonna go to Fox and see what they have.
Okay.
Can't get much more insane than they do. Whoa. Fox actually has them at 223.
Oh.
Yeah, but
it has Trump at
100 Electoral College.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. There's two different versions of reality happening right now, and
absolutely,
I'm confused here. Because they've decided to already preemptively call Texas, Florida, and Ohio.
Okay. Do we know how many?
Wait, what do you mean Fox is?
Fox apparently is called Florida, Ohio, and Texas.
With 90, it said 94% reporting in Ohio.
No, what I found was which candidate, and then I saw.
Well, Elliot, it's estimated. It's an estimated vote. Like,
oh, estimated. Okay, interesting.
It's in like it's guessing basically. They're guessing X amount of votes have been cast.
Yeah, that's what they say when you ask them. Are these the results? I guess.
We're guessing.
That's very funny, actually.
It's pretty delayed.
I wonder if there's like a truly neutral, like outside, nobody fucking cares kind of news source.
Like the Times estimates that it's only 89% of the way in.
I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a contradiction in terms. Like you can't not give a fuck and meticulously count.
Instead of kind of a perfect joke to say about the Times there. They were the 83% in.
89,
oh,
94.
Haha.
The cuts.
It's a funny joke about dicks.
I'm just gonna, for fun, Google least biased election map. Of course, like, that doesn't not gonna help, but we'll see what we get.
So PBS has
news bias choice
has 213 to 118.
Yeah, it looks like everybody does except for Fox, pretty much.
Fox, who are you playing?
But like the thing about that is that most Fox is the number one most viewed news source in the country. So most people don't really give a fuck about what they're watching. They just watch whatever is convenient, and for most people that will be Fox.
It's the most entertaining
variety. Most watched name in news. Fox News.
It's the most entertaining version of propaganda, or the most entertaining flavor.
What nasty word?
Sinclair owns like hundreds of local news sources. Stations.
Fuck Sinclair.
Business Insider actually really rated PBS as the least biased. Interestingly enough.
Oh, Joe's actually winning the popular vote now.
Joe Burns.
I mean,
yes,
I'd like
Joe Burns.
to be.
People have written in Joe Burns.
There are a couple of people in 2016 at my university who actually did write me in. Apparently,
nice. For what?
For president.
Oh, nice.
Joe,
the rationale was like, you know more about this shit than they do. I was like, okay, thanks, I guess.
It's probably true, actually. I mean, that dumbass football coach guy literally doesn't know anything about politics. And if he has a fighting chance, well, I guess you still don't. But like, yeah, that fell apart. Damn it.
Now I'm getting paranoid, and I'm going to check all the other conservative media outlets.
You know, I think it's hilarious that like Don Blankenship is running on the Constitution Party ticket.
Don't forget to check Rebel Media.
Oh God, not them.
What's the Blaze saying right about
What's
now?
the Blaze? What the fuck it's called? It's Rebel Media, the one with Gavin, and then the Blaze is the one with my boss. I actually can't remember his name.
Glenn
Beck. Yeah, there we go. I'm a fucking idiot. Hey, guys, I'm David the Kid. I had like sunlight, and I don't have my tablet, and I can't complain about anything because I'm David the Cave. All I have are these bats, and all they do is their little noises, you know, and they don't even like my stand-up comedy. Every time I try, I make a joke about being gay, and then they just fly away. They just fly away, and I'm just like, my bats, and I'm just like, is it gonna help me get out of this? I don't know. Hopefully. I got some,
even more reason.
Some $5 for the Patreon. But not to the Blaze. The Blaze, I already have the boss. It's Glenn Beck. But you gotta give it to the Epoch. That's it, yeah. It's the only way to get me out of the cave, folks. I'm leaning so hard, I'm like somewhere in the middle between Trump and Ruben.
It's such a weird, like, fusion.
Oh, that's so funny.
Breitbart, not surprisingly, has Trump with 205 electoral votes. What else should I check? What's another fucking...
The Blaze!
Conservative. Oh, sorry. I thought that was a metaphor for something. Okay.
That's literally
The Blaze.
The Blaze. Isn't that where like
Tommy
Loren is
too?
Or is Tommy Loren on Fox now?
I don't know where that bitch is.
Oh, you're lucky. The Washington Times is a conservative outlet.
I'm gonna check the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure my dad is looking at this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the fact that the Wall Street Journal is like consumed so readily, it says something horrible about American culture.
Yeah. Okay, the Wall Street Journal has Trump at 118.
So I just checked again. I have it on my screen that I'm sharing. Question 2. No, 54.1%. Yes, 45.9%, with 76% reporting in.
Fuck our state. Fuck this stupid.
It's just it's a sea of green.
Oh, look at that, Hull, Massachusetts. Go fuck yourself.
Wait. What is this? 2?
Yeah, this is 2.
Yeah.
Green.
Wait, give me the numbers again.
54.1% no.
Okay, all right. I got confused for a second.
Are you seeing the Washington Posts right now?
No.
Fuck.
Their numbers are wild.
Tell
What
me.
are they?
They're 205 to 118, but they are projecting that Trump is going to win.
Really?
Yeah.
And why do they think that?
Because if Trump gets Texas, then
Oh.
But Biden could still theoretically win without Texas.
I don't know. Bring it up with Bezos.
You would just need Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania's worth 20. Michigan,
All 3 of those states are going to Trump, though.
Well, they're leaning in that direction, but that's because the absentees haven't been counted. Also, in Michigan, there are 0 results from Detroit.
Detroit.
There are 0 results out of Ann Arbor in Michigan. Ann Arbor and Detroit are 2 Democratic bastions where they get a fuck ton of votes for the Democrats.
Listeners,
they have
if
nothing out of those.
If you're in Detroit and you need help, join our Patreon.
Not sure how that works. Giving us money will help you, but
Go to bed, Jesse.
Okay.
We're becoming like religious grifters. If you give us money, you will feel better.
Give us all your money. If you want success, if you want happiness.
I'm not 100% that if you leave, that I can also make Craig leave, but we'll find out.
I mean, I still would need, I don't know. I'm not sure about it. Maybe
Wait, haven't you made Craig
Should I
do
try
things?
it? I could try it.
Yeah, I mean, Yark's here now, so try and call Craig.
No, they mirror each other.
Oh,
yeah, I don't think it works.
Oh, that's weird. What's the point of it being designed that way? Everyone should.
Jesse, do you run it real quick? Just turn that off, and then I'll maybe turn it on. Or do we want to on it end for the night? Because I don't care either way at this point.
It's after midnight. We're not gonna know shit.
Yeah, we're probably not gonna know for a couple days. So, but this was fun, everyone. This is nice
wonderful.
Therapy spending the night with you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like shit earlier, and I feel like
I'm very happy you came around. I'm very happy you feel better
now. Yeah, I'm glad I showed up too.
You also want to thank Trent, Kit, Aisha, my brother.
And Aisha.
We had a turnout, folks. It's a fun night. We already introduced ourselves. If anybody wants to share where they can be found on the internet, does anybody fail the need?
Yeah, you can find me on SoundCloud.com/contingentsboston, and remember to hit up comrade-rosie.org. Click the Getting Involved tab. Donate to some mutual aid groups.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And as always, we have a Twitter, Instagram at Epoch Incredulity. We're also on Patreon at Epoch Incredulity. We talk about that quite often, so some of this material will probably end up on there. And as always, go to comrade-rosie.org. Get that involved tab. Do that thing. You'll feel better, baby. And you'll say, you know what? You'll say, you know what? I feel good because that was my epoch, motherfucker. That was the end. Whatever happens, comrades, we will come together and we will fight the capitalist powers that try to subjugate and keep down the global proletariat.
So, have we actually come to a consensus about what we're doing tomorrow?
Jesus Christ. I don't think it's a bad idea. Folks, I don't think it's a bad idea.